Chapter 61. /N. Original initials? Hairs. In the next moment, a fiery wolf half a meter long rushed out from within. Its fangs were bared, and its eyes were blazing with fire. The appearance of the fire wolf alarmed the 6 savage beasts at the entrance of the valley. They growled and stared at Sui, who was in the valley with shock in their eyes. The fire wolf roared, and a powerful aura swept out, causing the surroundings of the deep valley to turn into a sea of fire, and the temperature rose rapidly. Not good. At this moment, Suyi's deathly pale face changed drastically. The fire wolf that he had condensed was now ferociously pouncing towards him. It was too fast for Sui, who was still sitting cross-legged, to react in time. Moreover, Sui had just summoned the blazing barbaric wolf. Whether it was his mental power or vitality, he felt as if his body had been hollowed out, and he was powerless to resist. Do you think it's so easy to become a soul controller? Do you want to die? At the same time, the mysterious voice once again fell into Suyi's ears. An invisible spatial crack appeared in front of Sui, like a spatial barrier. PSSSH, the fire wolf phantom crashed into the space crack and dissipated at the same time. It was as if the fiery wolf had already been on the verge of dissipating before the collision. Sui scrambled to his feet, his face pale as he sucked in a breath of cold air. "Thank you, Senior," he said to Shinguanqian. "To summon a beast, you need to control it with your own spiritual strength. Otherwise, you'll be the first to suffer." The ancient voice reverberated through the valley. It was harsh, but then it seemed to soften a little. "But this is your first time. You may have committed a grave mistake, but it's still not bad." It continued to speak to Sui. "Senior, does that mean I've mastered the art of heavenly mastery?" Sui clicked his tongue. Fortunately, he had the help of this mysterious person. Otherwise, he would have been toyed to death by the fiery wolf he summoned. The mysterious man seemed to have some martial veins. He had not only mastered the art of controlling the heavens, he had also become a soul-controlling master. You can consider it successful. Based on your performance just now, you can barely be considered a beginner soul controller. However, you lack experience, the ancient voice said. I've become a soul controller. Sui was pleasantly surprised and couldn't help but jump up. What servant qualifications? How could he have the qualifications to be a servant? Soul controller was enough to explain everything. He couldn't become an alchemist or a blacksmith, but a soul controller was above alchemists and blacksmith. What's there to be happy about? With your little bit of strength and an inexperienced soul controller, anyone would be able to kill you in an instant. The ancient voice poured a bucket of cold water over Sui. Senior, in that case, is my time as a soul controller considered slow or fast? Back then, when you became a soul controller, were you much faster than me? Sui asked. For this mysterious person to be able to give him the art of controlling the heavens, he must be a soul controller as well. When Suyi's voice fell, he didn't know that in a certain space, an old face was twitching awkwardly. Back then, he could be considered a genius. However, to become an official soul controller with the guidance of a famous teacher, it took him a total of 3 months. He was already considered a top genius. But this kid in front of him had become a soul controller in just a few days. Could it be that he had to tell this kid that he was inferior to him? It's not slow. You barely passed, the ancient voice said. Is that so? Sui was a bit disappointed, but then he thought about the fact that anyone who could become a soul controller was an extraordinary individual. He felt a bit better. Smiling, he said to the mysterious man, "Then according to the terms of our bet, I can leave now, right?" The ancient voice seemed to be silent for a moment, then said, "Recover first, then leave this place." "Thank you, Senior." Sui was pleasantly surprised. At this moment, he really did need to recover. This was the barbaric demon forest. In his current state, It would be quite troublesome to leave this deep valley. Continuing to sit cross-legged, Su-yi was very happy. This mysterious person was quite true to his words. At least he didn't lie to him. Circulating the Origin Supreme technique, Su-yi began to adjust his breathing. The deep valley returned to calmness once again. As he adjusted his breathing, a faint light began to fluctuate around Su-yi's body. His pale face began to slowly turn red. His breathing was steady and strong, and the yuan qi in his body was fluctuating. In this silent deep valley, at some point in time, the calm air around Su-yi began to fluctuate. Traces of energy that were hard to detect with the naked eye seeped out of the air and then poured into Su-yi's body. When this kind of energy entered Su-yi's body, under the operation of the Origin Supreme technique, it suddenly turned into pure yuan qi and slowly poured into the yuan qi vortex in his dantian. With the influx of this yuan qi, the yuan qi vortex in Su-yi's body was expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. When the yuan qi vortex had reached a point of fullness, this pure yuan qi even filled the meridians of his body, causing the yuan qi in Su-yi's body to reach a critical point, as if it was about to erupt at any time. Bang! At a certain moment, Su-yi's body suddenly emitted a muffled sound, and the surrounding void trembled slightly. Then, the yuan qi in his body suddenly gathered towards his lower abdomen and suddenly poured into the yuan qi vortex in his dantian. At this moment, the yuan qi vortex in Su-yi's dantian suddenly turned into a vacuum, as if it had just exploded. Crash, but only for a moment. When the yuan qi vortex in Su-yi's dantian turned into a vacuum, it suddenly expanded to a new level. Then, yuan qi poured in from all directions like a flood, filling up the new yuan qi vortex in an instant. Qi. At this moment, Su-yi's eyes slowly opened, and the light was like lightning. Feeling the yuan qi in his body, the corners of his mouth curved into a smile, and he could not help but smile. Third level of the Essence Soul Realm. Awu at the entrance of the valley, as Su-yi walked out, the fire-eyed barbaric tiger, the scarlet fire demon mink, the white jade mystic bird, the silver spirit demonic butterfly, the hell rat, and the golden python were overjoyed and in awe. The 6 savage beasts crowded around him. Strange, as if seeing this scene, the ancient voice exclaimed in surprise. Su-yi stood at the entrance of the valley and turned to look into the deep valley. This mysterious person really let him go. Chapter 62. Kid, why aren't you leaving? If I suddenly go back on my word, you won't be able to leave, the ancient voice said. Su-yi bowed, smiled, and bowed respectfully to the valley. Su-yi thanks Senior for your guidance. May I know Senior's name so that I can remember it? At this moment, Su-yi had a serious expression on his face. Just as he had said, he was very grateful. Putting aside the fact that the royal grade martial skill and the art of controlling the heavens were invaluable, Su-yi was even more grateful for the mysterious man's guidance. It was much more important than the Rising Yao's 100 transformation step. Ha ha ha, Su-yi, what do you want? Do you want to be my disciple? Don't even think about it. If you want to become my disciple, you'll have to wait until you reach the Origin Ancestor realm. The ancient voice laughed. Senior, you are my first teacher. It is only right for me to pay my respects to you. If I can only become your disciple after reaching the Origin Ancestor level, I will definitely come over to formally acknowledge you as my teacher once I reach the Origin Ancestor level. Su-yi bowed. His figure was tall and straight, and his clothes were shabby, but they couldn't hide his arrogant temperament. Wasn't it just the Origin Ancestor realm? One day he would reach it. Otherwise, how could he talk about reaching the Saint Mountain? Good, reaching the Origin Ancestor realm. You're crazy enough, just to my liking. The ancient voice laughed and said, when you reach the Origin Ancestor realm, I'll take you as my disciple. But before that, it's better that you don't know my name. Let's go. Teacher, do you have any other martial skills? Treasures are fine too, right? Something to commemorate our departure? Su-yi asked weakly. Get lost quickly. The ancient voice replied unhappily. This kid didn't even know what the art of controlling heaven was, yet he still had the nerve to ask. If you don't want to give, then don't give. Su-yi raised his head, then turned to the white jade mystic bird and said, Can you bring me up? Coo! The white jade mystic bird nodded, spreading its wings and crawling in front of Su-yi. Su-yi gently tapped his foot on the ground. Now that he had practiced the Fuyao's 100 changing steps, he landed lightly on the back of the white jade mystic bird. With his back facing the valley, he waved his hand and said, Let's go. Don't send me off. Wait for me to come back. As soon as he finished speaking, the white jade mystic bird flapped its wings and soared into the sky. A woo squeak squeak. The fire-eyed barbaric tiger, fiery scarlet demon mink, silver spirit demonic butterfly, hell rat, and golden python immediately flew upwards to chase after him. Silence returned to the deep valley. Teacher, hee, this kid. No one could hear the archaic voice. In the end, I couldn't hold myself back. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Based on this kid's personality, once he leaves, this place will be quite lively. At the top of the cliff, the surroundings were misty and the cliff towered into the clouds. When the white jade mystic bird appeared at the top of the cliff, Su-yi jumped off its back and could not help but take a deep breath. He had finally escaped from death. Awoo! The silver spirit demonic butterfly flapped its wings, and the fire-eyed barbaric tiger, fiery scarlet demon mink, hell rat, and golden python also climbed up the cliff and surrounded Su-yi. I forgot. I don't know how your eggs are. Looking at the golden python, Su-yi remembered the 2 eggs that were still in the mysterious space. This cliff was desolate and uninhabited. Su-yi did not dare to be careless. He found a hidden place and entered the mysterious space. Feeling the aura of the mysterious space, the golden python, fiery golden tiger, and white jade mystic bird were in awe. The mysterious space was still the same. The size of about 10 feet had not changed. It seemed that because Su-yi had broken through there last time, the energy in the space had thinned a lot. But these days, it had become denser again. It's broken. When Su-yi saw the 2 eggs in the mysterious space, his face changed. The 2 eggs were completely broken. No, it's hatched. But then, Su-yi's eyes lit up. Beside the broken eggshell, there were 2 finger-sized, inch-long golden snakes wriggling lazily. The little golden snake's body emitted a faint golden glow. When it saw Su-yi and the golden python enter, it seemed to have sensed something and its eyes lit up with joy. Its small body seemed to be able to leap into the air and immediately rushed to the golden python's side. Hiss! The 2 little golden snakes coiled around each other, one on the left and one on the right. The golden pythons flicked their tongues, their eyes filled with joy and motherly love. The white jade mystic bird, hell rat, and the others were also curiously looking at the 2 snakes. Swish! The 2 golden snakes and the golden python were intimate for a while. Then, one of them directly flew out and landed on Su-yi's shoulder. Its small tongue flicked and its small head rubbed against Su-yi's hair. It seemed very intimate. Feeling that the golden snake did not have any malicious intent and seemed to be close to him, Su-yi reached out and held the golden snake in the palm of his hand. It seems to be different. Su-yi was a little surprised. He did not know if it was because the golden snake had not grown up, but he felt that there were some differences between the golden snake and the golden python. The snake's scales on its body seemed to be more crystalline. Su-yi even seemed to be able to feel a strange aura from the golden snake. It seemed to have some kind of invisible connection with him. Swish! Seeing this, the other golden snake immediately flew out and intimately landed on Su-yi's body. Very strange. Looking at the second golden snake, Su-yi was even more certain that there were some differences between these 2 golden snakes and the golden python. They also had some kind of invisible connection with him. A moment later, on the cliff, Sui looked at the 6 savage beasts and said, "You don't have to follow me anymore. Go back." Roar. The 6 savage beasts roared in a low voice and shook their heads. It seemed that they had made up their minds to follow Sui. Sui was very puzzled. He did not know why these savage beasts were acting so strangely. Even though he had been in the Omphalos for so long, these savage beasts did not leave. It seemed that they had really submitted to him. "It is not convenient for you to follow me. Go back and cultivate. When you are strong one day, you may be able to help me." Sui smiled faintly. Although this was the barbaric demon forest, and he did not seem to know where to go, it was really inconvenient for these savage beasts to follow him. Roar. The 6 savage beasts seemed to be unwilling. They looked at Sui and did not want to leave. Chapter 63. The 6 beasts looked at Sui's back and hissed softly. The 2 golden snakes coiled around the golden python's body and raised their little heads. Their eyes rolled around, unwilling to part with Sui. 09 Small said, "Net." Sui left, wearing ragged clothes as he shuttled through the forest. Although it was safer to bring the 6 beasts into the barbaric demon forest, there were still many inconveniences. After surviving a great disaster, Sui had to think about where he should go. He definitely couldn't go to the sacred mountain. Moreover, he was already disappointed in the sacred mountain. Sui had no interest. As for returning to the barbarian city, Sui knew that he definitely couldn't return. Once the news of him returning to the barbarian city spread, Wang Chuanda would be exposed. At that time, who knew if it was a blessing or a curse? It might even bring disaster to the Su family. Before I have absolute strength, I definitely can't return to the barbarian city. Sui secretly gritted his teeth. Before he had absolute strength, he couldn't return to the barbarian city. Sui didn't need to think to know that Wang Chuanda was going to silence him. When the time came, he would probably say that Sui was killed by the mercenary group and had nothing to do with him. But if the news of his death were to spread to his grandfather and Wan heir, they would definitely be heartbroken. "Grandfather, Wan heir, I'm not dead. One day, I will return to the barbarian city." Sui's eyes were bloodshot. His grandfather was heavily injured and couldn't hold on for much longer. He must become strong as soon as possible and find the pill that could heal his grandfather's injuries, prolong his life, and increase his strength. 09 Small said, "Net." Sui wasn't unfamiliar with the barbaric demon forest. Because of this, Sui didn't dare to be careless. During the 3 years he was in the barbaric demon forest, he didn't even have the qualifications to enter. Not long later, deep beastly roars came from the depths of the forest, startling the birds. Within the canyon, a total of 7 blazing barbaric wolves that were around 5 feet long appeared around Sui. Their bodies seemed to be burning with flames, and they bared their fangs, causing the surrounding temperature to rise. Sui looked at the 7 blazing barbaric wolves in front of him. They were all in the demon soul realm, which was equivalent to the essence soul realm for human warriors. However, judging from their auras, these 7 blazing barbaric wolves were all very strong. The one in the lead seemed to have reached the demon profound realm. The blazing barbaric wolf was a fire-attributed savage beast. Sui was no stranger to it. In the barbarian demon forest, the blazing barbarian wolf was the most common savage beast. Not long ago, Sui had summoned a blazing barbarian wolf by mistake. Boom! The 7 blazing barbaric wolves surrounded Sui, their eyes filled with ferocity. At this moment, Sui did not dare to be careless. He immediately circulated the Origin Supreme technique and circulated his chi. At this instant, they seemed to have sensed something, and along with the circulation of the Origin Supreme technique on Sui's body, the bodies of the 7 blazing barbaric wolves instantly trembled, and the ferocious gazes in their eyes transformed into an instinctive expression of fear and astonishment. They let out low roars and didn't dare move forward at all. Whoa! The leading blazing barbaric wolf paced back and forth, looking at Sui in shock. Finally, it slowly retreated and left. What's going on? Sui was also surprised. This reaction did not seem to be as big as the golden python and hellrat. However, under the Origin Supreme technique, these savage beasts seemed to be afraid. See more why new carat, fastest on Cool 2 Craftsman carat 7 net dollar. The primeval Chaos Supreme technique must have some sort of origin. Sui pondered. This reaction was enough to prove that the Origin Supreme technique had a great origin. However, with his current rookie strength, he was afraid that he would not know. However, the Origin Supreme technique had a deterrent effect on savage beasts. This made Sui quite happy. No matter what, this was a good thing for him. Someone's coming. Suddenly, Sui frowned slightly. After cultivating the art of controlling the heavens, the invisible soul force in his mind had become much stronger. He could sense a lot of movements in the vicinity. In the barbaric demon forest, Sui did not dare to be careless. Therefore, he was always vigilant of any movements in his surroundings. Just now, when he was surrounded by 7 blazing barbaric wolves, although he had sensed wrongly, it was already too late. Just like now, Sui felt that there was someone, but it was too late to hide. Whoa! The wolf's howl was deafening. In the direction where the 7 blazing barbaric wolves had retreated, a blazing barbaric wolf roared and ran out. Its expression was anxious, as if it was running away from something. Swish! Almost at the same time, a golden light flashed out from behind the blazing barbaric wolf like lightning. Its speed was much faster than the blazing barbaric wolf's, and it directly entered the blazing barbaric wolf's neck. Bang, bang! The 5-foot-long blazing barbaric wolf immediately fell to the ground and lost its vitality. However, its body still carried the momentum of running as it brushed against the ground. In the end, it coincidentally stopped beside Sui. Sui also saw it carefully. This blazing barbaric wolf was the strongest blazing barbaric wolf from before. At this moment, its neck was shot by an arrow. Blood flowed out and it lost its vitality. It hit. Young Master is amazing. One arrow hit. Young Master's archery has improved a lot again. Swish, swish, in the forest, there was a sudden clamor. Following that, a dozen figures rushed out, bringing with them a dozen extraordinary auras that were fierce and bloody. They're not ordinary people. Just from this aura, Sui knew that this group of people was definitely not an ordinary mercenary group. After being in the barbarian demon forest for 3 years, Sui still has this bit of eyesight. As the dozen figures rushed out, Sui looked over. The dozen robust men all had extraordinary auras and were very powerful. They probably weren't any weaker than the demon spirit realm cultivators from the sacred mountain that followed Wang Chuanda. Finally, Sui's gaze landed on a 16 or 17-year-old boy in the lead. This young man was dressed in black, and his elbows, wrists, shoulders, and chest were all covered with metal armor. He held a golden bow in his hand and carried a quiver on his back. There were dozens of golden arrows shining in the quiver, making him look very imposing and heroic. Obviously, the one who killed the blazing barbaric wolf was this black-clothed youth. A demon profound realm blazing barbaric wolf was killed with a single arrow. Sui was inwardly shocked. This black-clothed youth's strength was probably even stronger than the sacred mountain's Ji Chao. When the black-clothed youth saw Sui, he seemed a little surprised that there was someone else here. Furthermore, it was a youth that seemed to be around his age. Looking at Sui's ragged appearance, the black-clothed youth only gave him an indifferent glance. With an insufferably arrogant aura, he looked at Sui and lightly said, "Hey, kid, help me pull the arrow out." Chapter 64. After speaking, Sui turned around and left. He did not want to be involved with these people. These people were not easy to deal with. As if he did not expect that the other party would not put him in his eyes. The black-clothed youth was used to being high and mighty. Who would dare to go against him? He could not help but be slightly stunned. "Brat, you are courting death." In the next moment, the black-clothed youth regained his senses. His face immediately turned gloomy as a cold light flashed in his eyes. He pulled out an arrow from his back and immediately knocked it on the bowstring. His origin chi surged as he released the arrow. The arrow was like lightning as it swept towards the back of Su Yi's head. When the dozen or so robust men saw Su Yi's reaction, they were also rather astonished. When they saw the black-clothed youth knock the bow and release the arrow, they all sneered. That brat was simply courting death. He actually dared to offend the Black Fiend's sex young master. In the entire barbaric demon forest, there were probably not many people who dared to offend the young master. Su Yi turned around and left, but he remained vigilant towards his surroundings. He naturally spied on the arrow behind his back, but it was too fast. In an instant it had already reached the back of his head. Swish, without any hesitation, Su Yi used the Fuyao 100 transformation steps and used his speed to the extreme. Adding on his experience, Su Yi's figure rapidly dodged the arrow in an unimaginable arc. However, the back of Su Yi's head and neck felt a piercing pain from the strong wind, leaving behind a bloody scar. A few strands of hair near his ear were swept away by the strong wind, making him look very miserable. Profound origin realm. Stronger than Ji Chao. Su Yi was not surprised. At this moment, his expression darkened. He did not expect that the black-clothed youth would be so vicious and merciless. He attacked with a killing move for no reason. Everyone originally thought that the ragged youth would definitely die when the young master made his move. At this moment, when they saw that Su Yi actually dodged the arrow, they were somewhat astonished. That youth and the young master were about the same age. It seemed that he was even younger than the young master. Was it a coincidence? Or could it be that he was stronger than the young master? One had to know that the young master's innate talent was one of the best in the entire barbaric demon forest. The black-clothed youth was even more astonished. His opponent had actually dodged his arrow. This was undoubtedly a loss of face. Whoosh, Su Yi dodged, his figure in a sorry state. However, he took the opportunity to activate the Rising Yao's 100 transformation steps to the extreme and immediately fled. In a place like the barbaric demon forest, there was no right or wrong, only the strong and the weak. At this moment, the enemy was strong while he was weak. Su Yi was very clear that what he had to do was to run. Where did this brat come from? You're courting death. In an instant, when they saw that Su Yi had directly fled, the dozen strong men immediately roared out. Their figures were like lightning as they immediately charged towards Su Yi. Chi La. Su Yi's speed was as fast as lightning. At this moment, the Rising Yao's 100 transformation steps was unleashed at full force. His speed was astonishing. However, just as Su Yi's figure flew out, his expression changed drastically. An invisible and powerful aura descended and directly enveloped his body, causing the yuan qi in his body to stagnate. His speed was greatly affected and he almost fell. At the same time, Su Yi felt numerous energies fall into his body. In an instant, the meridians in his body were blocked. Unable to circulate his yuan qi, Su Yi's entire body involuntarily stiffened. He was unable to move and his body directly staggered forward and fell. A figure appeared beside Su Yi. Su Yi fell to the ground, but his face was not facing the ground. Therefore, one could clearly see that it was an old man who looked to be in his 60s. A wide black robe covered his withered body like a skirt. The old man's complexion was slightly pale. This kind of pale complexion was like that of someone who had just recovered from a serious illness. His eyes were deep in his eye sockets, causing people to tremble for no reason when they looked at him. It's an expert. Su-yi was unable to move. He knew that a restriction had been placed on his body. He was inwardly shocked by the aura of this old man. It was very powerful, probably not much weaker than that of Wang Chuanda. Strength, Su-yi inwardly felt bitter. No wonder the mysterious person said that although he had become a soul controller, with his current strength, any one of them would be able to kill him in an instant. His cultivation of the third layer of the soul essence realm was simply too weak. Greetings, Elder Bai. The dozen or so stalwart men were originally chasing after Su-yi. When they saw the old man appear, they were somewhat surprised. Inwardly, they seemed to have some kind of fear. They immediately saluted. Kid, why aren't you running anymore? The black-clothed youth arrived beside Su-yi, who was lying on the ground. His anger had not yet subsided. He ruthlessly kicked Su-yi's lower abdomen. Young sect master, it's about time. We should set off. The black-clothed old man said to the black-clothed youth. Okay, let's kill this kid first and then leave. The black-clothed youth nodded. It seemed that he did not dare to ignore the old man's words. As his voice fell, killing intent surged out from his eyes. He's just an soul essence realm kid. This is the time when we need people. Throw him into the mine and make the best use of him, the old man indifferently said. It seemed that to him, an soul essence realm kid was no different from an ant. However, this was the time when they needed people in the mine so they could make the best use of him. That's fine. Leaving this kid alive can be considered making the best use of him. Hearing this, the black-clothed youth also nodded. As if he was still angry, he ruthlessly kicked Su-yi's lower abdomen again. As long as I don't die, there will be a chance. This debt will be repaid tenfold in the future. Su-yi inwardly clenched his teeth. Although he did not know what kind of place the mine was, at least he could survive. As long as he was alive, there would be a chance. Soon after, the stalwart men happily left with the corpses of the blazing barbaric wolves. Su-yi was carried on the shoulders of one of them. Not long after, Su-yi saw many flying savage beasts in a nearby valley. These savage beasts were all mounts. There were many figures with fierce and bloody auras in the surroundings. Their clothes were all similar, as if they were from the same faction. In the valley there were more than 200 figures. There were both old and young, and they were all cultivators. Some were sitting cross-legged, while others were resting with their eyes closed. Let's go. As the stalwart man directly threw Su-yi onto the back of a flying savage beast, the black-clothed old man in the lead spoke. His voice echoed in the valley. When everyone heard this, they immediately stood up. As the flying savage beast flapped its wings and rose into the sky, many figures flew onto the flying savage beast mounts. Su-yi was thrown onto the back of the flying savage beast. There were many figures sitting around him. There were people with fierce and bloody auras from the same faction, as well as many other figures. Although many people were secretly curious about Su-yi, no one paid any attention to him. However, no one cared about Su-yi. In the barbaric demon forest, no one was willing to meddle in other people's business. However, there were some people who seemed to be familiar with each other. They were whispering to each other. It is said that the mine that the Black Fiend sect discovered this time is very big. They need more manpower to dig it. To be able to get 3 origin stones in 3 months, this treatment is not low. The mine is not an ordinary kind of hard work. There are dangers at all times. If they don't pay a higher price, the Black Fiend sect won't be able to find so many people to dig it. Chapter 65. From the whispers, Su-yi found out that the gray-robed old man and the black-clothed young man were from the Black Fiend sect. Black Fiend sect. That made Su-yi's heart tremble. After being in the barbaric demon forest for 3 years, how could Su-yi not know about the 3 strongest powers in the barbaric demon forest? Within the 3 powers, there was the Black Fiend sect. The Black Fiend sect, the Wild Dragon Mercenary Alliance, and the Blood God sect. The three powers in the barbaric demon forest controlled the entire barbaric demon forest. Although the barbaric demon forest was remote, savage beasts roamed freely, and it was rumored that there were powerful demon clan experts. But it was also because of that the barbaric demon forest was vast and abundant in resources. It was rich in all sorts of medicinal herbs, refining materials, and various resources from savage beasts. Those were all things that cultivators could not lack. Where there was a market, there would be benefits. Where there were benefits, there would be conflicts and dispute. Although the barbaric demon forest was remote and filled with danger, it also made the barbaric demon forest become an independent world. For a long time, in the chaotic disputes of benefits, some powers in the barbaric demon forest vanished like smoke in thin air, and some powers took the chance to rise. Up until now, the three strongest powers in the barbaric demon forest controlled most of the benefits in the entire barbaric demon forest. The other mercenary groups and small and medium-sized powers were all inextricably linked to those three powers. Other than savage beasts, medicinal herbs, refining materials, etc., the barbaric demon forest also had a type of material that no warrior could lack, and that was origin stones. Within the general public, there were gold and silver materials used as currency. But among cultivators, alchemists, refiners, and soul controllers, the currency was not gold and silver, but origin stones. Origin stones were a gift from heaven and earth to cultivators. There were different types of attributes, and they were condensed and formed in heaven and earth. They contained the energy of heaven and earth, and could increase a cultivator's cultivation speed. When a cultivator absorbed the energy within origin stones, it was enough to be much faster than normal cultivation. One could imagine how important origin stones were to cultivators. But origin stones were not everywhere. It could be said to be one of the most expensive things in the world. Within the barbaric demon forest, there were coincidentally some origin stone mines. And the people on the flying savage beast mounts were people that the Black Fiend sect paid a large price to come to the mines to mine for the Black Fiend sect. Mining for origin stones was an extremely dangerous job, and ordinary people could not do it. Stop chattering and shut up. The whispers in the surroundings attracted the attention of the Black Fiend sect's disciples on the flying savage beast. They immediately turned their heads and swept their sharp gazes over the few people who were whispering. Immediately, fear appeared in their eyes. They lowered their heads and no longer dared to speak. The Black Fiend sect was known for its ruthlessness and ruthlessness. Otherwise, how could it become one of the three great powers in the barbaric demon forest? Within the entire barbaric demon forest, how many people dared to provoke the Black Fiend sect? Su-yi was restricted, and his mind was constantly thinking about how to escape. Update $SD on R fastest Y. Circulate your energy to dissolve the seal. Even though he was unable to circulate his origin energy, Su-yi did not give up. He tried in secret. After all, he could not possibly become a fish on the chopping board. This restriction cannot stop the Origin Supreme technique. Suddenly, Su-yi was pleasantly surprised. As he circulated the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, he discovered that the restriction couldn't stop him. After circulating the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, the restricted origin energy in his body began to loosen a little. Then, it slowly surged. Under the circulation of the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, the origin energy began to flow towards the restricted meridians. It began to attempt to break through the restricted meridians. It works. Although it was just an attempt, Su-yi could clearly feel that although the speed of the origin energy breaking through the restriction was slow, as long as there was enough time, it would definitely be able to dissolve the restriction. No, I have to stabilize it first. This will only put me in a more dangerous situation. Suddenly, Su-yi stopped attacking the restriction. Right now, he was still under the Black Fiend sect's nose, especially in front of the gray-robed old man. If he was discovered, he would be in an even more dangerous situation. Su-yi pondered. He would think of a way to escape after he stabilized. At the very least, he couldn't do it in front of an expert like the gray-robed old man. If there was anything strange, the gray-robed old man would quickly discover it. Several hours later, the sun was setting in the western sky above the mountain forest. In the distance, thick clouds and mist occupied the sky. The setting sun took advantage of the small gaps in the sky and shot out rays of crimson light. Su-yi lay on the back of a savage beast mount. His gaze passed through the mountain forest. At the intersection of the sky and water where the setting sun sank, many simple buildings appeared. From time to time, the roars of demonic beasts could be heard. "We've arrived." A black fiend sect's disciple spoke and stood up on the back of a flying savage beast mount. At this moment, everyone on the savage beast mounts also stood up. Their eyes secretly moved. Some were expectant, some were worried, and all of them had complicated feelings. One by one, the flying beasts landed in a flat valley. There were simple buildings in the surroundings. Su-yi was still sizing up the place when he was directly thrown down by a black fiend sect's disciple. He fell heavily on the ground. Whoosh whoosh, the gray-robed skinny old man who was called Elder Bai quietly appeared beside Su-yi. Several rays of energy light lingered from his withered fingertips and landed on Su-yi's body. Su-yi's restricted meridians were immediately free of blockages. They were a little numb and painful, but gradually recovered. "Throw him into the mine for yuan stones. If he doesn't behave, just kill him," Elder Bai indifferently said. He did not give Su-yi another glance and walked towards a comfortable campsite with the black-clothed youth who had landed not far away. The black-clothed youth turned his head and indifferently glanced at Su-yi. His eyes contained a cold smile and he no longer cared. Su-yi stood up and looked at the black-clothed youth and the gray-robed old man. A trace of coldness was undetectable. "Brat, leave. It's best if you behave. Otherwise, you're just courting death." A black fiend sect's disciple immediately stepped forward and kicked Su-yi's waist. The kick caused Su-yi to stagger forward a few steps. "Everyone, come over and start entering the mine." A black fiend sect's disciple began to berate. Someone led the way and let the miners enter the mine. "It's already night. Are they going to mine through the night?" Some people did not understand. It was already sunset. Could it be that they were in such a hurry to mine the yuan stones? Less nonsense. "Hurry up!" A black fiend sect's disciple loudly berated. He coldly stared at the person who had spoken. A cold light filled the air, and that person was so frightened that he did not dare to speak anymore. The others originally had some opinions, but at this moment they were silent like cicadas in winter and did not dare to ask. Chapter 66. Look at the correct edition. Chapter Z. Above both sides of the rugged mountain path were filled with black fiend sect's disciples. Under the black fiend sect's disciples' orders, the group of 200 people walked for a while before reaching their destination. Su-yi saw a huge valley. The valley's surroundings were messy and there were many caves. Beside each cave, there were black fiend sect's disciples standing guard. Their auras were extraordinary and any one of them had an extraordinary cultivation. Su-yi secretly sized up the place and memorized the terrain in his heart, making preparations for his escape. The valley was like a mine, but the surrounding heaven and earth energy was quite extraordinary. "Come and check." The 200 people were divided into groups and scattered around several cave entrances. The black fiend sect's disciples came over for a strict check. No one was allowed to bring in a spatial bag or even any origin stones. The spatial bag had a separate space inside. If someone brought the spatial bag in to steal origin stones, it would be a huge loss. The black fiend sect would not make such a mistake. Moreover, the black fiend sect's inspection was not limited to this. Every cave entrance had a special inspection device that seemed to be able to check for other things. Su Yi stood in line and silently observed everything with a solemn expression. The Black Fiend sect's disciples at the surrounding cave entrances had stronger auras than those outside. They were probably the Black Fiend sect's elite. The origin stones produced by this mine were naturally an important industry for the Black Fiend sect. Su Yi knew that with his cultivation, it would be a fool's dream if he wanted to escape from this place under normal circumstances. It was no wonder that the skinny old man from the Black Fiend sect was so assured to remove the restriction on his body. "Open your arms and take out everything." In front of Su Yi, a skinny old man was being inspected. "I don't have anything on me. If I had the money to buy a spatial bag, would I still be able to help you mine origin stones?" The skinny old man muttered. His clothes were extremely simple and plain. His forehead seemed to have turned a bit white. His head of withered black hair was like straw, tightly tied to his head. Su Yi's gaze inadvertently landed on the old man's body. From the aura emitted from the old man's body, it seemed like his cultivation wasn't very high. At most, he was at the Yuan profound realm. Moreover, his cultivation level wasn't very high. Looking at the old man's age, he was probably in his 50s. Su Yi inwardly sighed. Perhaps talent determined everything. It was not without reason. With such a low cultivation at such an age, he still had to rely on mining to obtain origin stones to cultivate. His life could be considered as a coward. "Let's go. Follow closely behind me and mine for primeval stones. You have a mission every day. If you can't complete your mission or do something behind my back, you'll have to bear the consequences." The skinny old man seemed to have been inspected, and the Black Fiend sect disciples at the entrance of the cave let him in. Their tone carried a warning and reminder. Check. It was Su Yi's turn. According to the Black Fiend sect's disciples' instructions, Su Yi was checked and his body was searched. With Su Yi's ragged appearance, the Black Fiend sect's disciple did not pay much attention to Su Yi. After a simple inspection, Su Yi was allowed to enter the cave. Following the person in front, Su Yi carefully entered the cave. It was different from what he had imagined. The inside of the cave was extremely large. There were many tunnels crisscrossing each other, just like an underground maze. Moreover, the cave was extremely lively. There were many Black Fiend sect's disciples patrolling the area. There were also many miners pushing special carts. The carts were filled with rocks of different sizes. The largest was the size of a baby, while the smallest was the size of a fist. These rocks were of different colors, but they seemed to be very heavy. Two people pushing a cart, and both of them were martial artists with cultivation, seemed to be very strenuous. "Hurry up with me. If you can't complete the mission today, there will be consequences for you." Inside the cave, a large man from the Black Fiend sect had a gloomy look in his eyes. The long whip in his hand ruthlessly lashed out at the large man pushing the cart. Under the lash of the whip, the large man staggered and fell to the ground. A bloody mark appeared on his back, but he immediately struggled up. His eyes were filled with dread and fear. He didn't even dare to utter a single sound. He immediately used all of his strength to push the cart away with his companions. As Su Yi and the others saw this, many of their complexions changed. Were these people also here to mine for primordial stones like them? It seemed like they had suffered quite a bit. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and get ready to mine." Looking at the gazes of Su Yi and the others, the large man from the Black Fiend sect coldly glanced at Su Yi and the others. He was well aware that these newcomers would be able to work at the beginning, but they wouldn't be able to last for long. Even so, this was enough for them to catch up with the latest progress. The thin old man lowered his head, as if he didn't care about the large man from the Black Fiend sect. Instead, he looked around with interest. There seems to be something special about this. At first, Su Yi hadn't paid much attention to the old man. But this small, unintentional reaction had attracted Su Yi's attention. Based on Su Yi's experience and awareness, This thin old man seemed to be very abnormal. Everyone's complexions changed, and they all feared the Black Fiend sect disciples. But the old man's reaction seemed a bit off. "Follow me. Don't look around. When the time comes, just do what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." The Black Fiend sect disciple continued to lead the way, warning Su-Yi and the others. The mine was very deep and crisscrossed. If no one led the way, Su-Yi really would get lost. "This is very abnormal. This must be a black mine." The deeper they went, the more people Su-Yi encountered. The more he felt that something was wrong. Almost every one of the people who had been mining here was as thin as a match. Their spirits were also dispirited. It was as if they had been squeezed to the extreme. The others in Su-Yi's group seemed to have noticed this as well. Their expressions grew even more serious as worry began to appear in their eyes. "Everyone, why do I feel like something's not right? Is the Black Fiend sect trying to trick us?" Unable to bear it any longer, some people began to whisper as a small disturbance began to rise. "I told you to be quiet. Didn't you hear me?" The Black Fiend sect disciple leading the way turned his head, his expression dark and cold as he stared at Su-Yi's group. "I want to leave now. I don't want to mine for the Black Fiend sect anymore. Please take me out." A large man opened his mouth, his eyes moving slightly. He was around 30 years old and had some shrewdness. He felt that something was wrong and wanted to leave. Upon hearing these words, the gazes of the surrounding group immediately turned to look at him. Many people's eyes moved, as if they all had the same thought. Along the way, and especially when they reached this cave, everything made them feel uneasy. "Say that again?" The Black Fiend sect disciple leading the group slowly stepped forward, stopping in front of the shrewd large man. His expression was indifferent as he asked in an indifferent voice. Chapter 67. Qi-La rays of light surged and Yuan Qi fluctuated. A cold light shot out from the hand of the Black Fiend sect's disciple leading the way. It was as fast as lightning and carried a fierce aura. A claw directly clasped onto the shrewd man's neck. This sudden change caused everyone's expression to change. The shrewd man was even more shocked and his expression changed greatly. The opponent's cultivation and strength far exceeded his own. He didn't even have the strength to resist. "You come and go as you please. What do you think my Black Fiend sect is? You're courting death." As the Black Fiend sect's disciple spoke these harsh and emotionless words, his 5 fingers tightened. Kacha, the shrewd man's neck was directly broken. His body fell limply to the side and lost all signs of life. Dark red blood flowed out from the side of his protruding eyeballs. It was very frightening and caused people to palpitate for no reason. Everyone trembled and felt their hair stand on end. "Is there anyone else who wants to leave?" The Black Fiend sect's disciple, who just attacked, coldly swept his gaze over Su-Yi's group. His killing intent was not concealed at all. Everyone's heart palpitated and they didn't dare to speak. Seeing everyone's reaction, the Black Fiend sect's disciples who led the way all revealed cold smiles. At this place, there was no need to be afraid of these people not being obedient. If anyone dared to disobey, just kill them. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey was the most effective method. Su-Yi slightly lowered his head and narrowed his eyes, not leaving any traces. It seemed that this was indeed a black cave. These warriors wanted to obtain high-level cultivation, but in the end, they would most likely have to pay with their lives. In this world, the strong were respected and the weak were prey to the strong. Not to mention in this barbaric demon forest. Su-Yi's gaze subconsciously landed on the skinny old man in front of him. Su-Yi realized that the skinny old man had his head lowered and his expression was one of terror. It was as if he was shocked by the scene that had just happened. "That's an actor." Su-Yi was even more suspicious. This skinny old man's acting was definitely not bad. The more the skinny old man acted like this, the more it aroused Su-Yi's curiosity. Under the guidance of the Black Fiend sect's disciples, Su Yi's group continued to go deeper into the mine. The space in front of them grew larger and larger, as if they were deep underground. Quite a few rock caves appeared in the surroundings. Along the way, there were constantly miners mining rocks under the shouts of the Black Fiend sect disciples. Half an hour later, Su Yi and the rest finally arrived at their destination. It was a huge cave that looked like a small valley. There were pearls glowing all around, illuminating the cave as if it was daytime. The entire cavern was in the middle of mining. Under the supervision of several Black Fiend school disciples, several dozen people were using special mining tools to excavate the rock. This kind of rock seemed to be very hard and special. These miners were all warriors. Even when they used their yuan qi, it was still very strenuous for them to mine such rock. When the Black Fiend sect's disciples who were monitoring the miners saw that the Black Fiend sect's disciples who were leading the way had brought quite a number of people over, their eyes lit up with joy. They all came forward to welcome them and whispered something to each other. "Everyone, get to work. Hurry up." Soon after, a Black Fiend sect disciple distributed tools for Su Yi's group to work, digging out the rocks in the cave. The group did not dare to disobey. Although they were unwilling, they did not dare to provoke these Black Fiend sect's disciples. Su Yi did not say anything. He received a special mining tool that looked like a hoe or a shovel. It was made of a special material and was very hard. According to the instructions, he began to mine the rocks in the cave. These rocks were even harder than Su Yi had imagined. No wonder these miners looked so tired and strenuous. "I'll leave them to you. Watch carefully and quickly dig to the bottom." The Black Fiend sect's disciples who were leading the way left, no longer paying attention to Su Yi's group. "Hurry up. Whoever dares to slack off, I'll take care of them." The Black Fiend sect's disciples held weapons in their hand. Their expressions were fierce and fiendish. Just in this cave alone, there were over 100 miners. However, in front of the Black Fiend sect's disciples, they all kept quiet out of fear, not daring to resist. If they were too weak, they could only be trampled on. This kind of mining was truly tiring. Su Yi lowered his head to work, mining the strange rocks. After only 4 hours, he felt a little exhausted. Fortunately, the miners were not made of iron and needed to rest. After every 6 hours, the miners could rest for 2 hours. After all, the Black Fiend sect did not want these miners to die from exhaustion. During these 2 hours, the miners could use breathing exercises to recover. However, they absolutely could not leave the cave. "Let's go out and get some fresh air. Junior brother, watch over us." The Black Fiend sect's disciples ordered the youngest to watch over them. The others also took the opportunity to go out and get some fresh air. In this cave, they were truly suffocating. "All of you stay here obediently. Otherwise, you'll have a good time." After the Black Fiend sect's disciples left, the youngest Black Fiend sect's disciple secretly moved and took the opportunity to go out for a walk. He was also very sullen. In any case, it was impossible for these miners to escape. The latest update ML. When the Black Fiend sect's disciples left, many of the miners let out a sigh of relief. "Everyone, how long have you been in here? What's going on here?" A new miner immediately asked the older miners. At first, the Black Fiend sect's disciples were watching them, so they did not dare to ask. 3 months. This is a black mine. Once you've come, you can't leave. I've been here for 4 months and I haven't even left the cave. The Black Fiend sect won't let us out," the older miners said as they looked at the newcomers. Their eyes were listless and helpless, as if they were already used to it. "We've all been deceived by the Black Fiend sect." A new miner's expression changed. At this time, the last trace of hope had been cut off. They had originally wanted the Black Fiend sect's high price of primal stones, but they had not expected that the Black Fiend sect wanted their lives. They wanted to squeeze them dry and had no intention of letting them leave. "There are so many people here. did no one resist? A new miner asked. Along the way, there were at least 1,000 miners in this cave, while the Black Fiend sect's disciples numbered at most 150. Did no one think of resisting? Could it be that they could only wait for death? Don't think too much. The Black Fiend sect has experts guarding this place. With everyone's strength and cultivation, it is impossible for them to be a match. A tired-looking man said. His listless eyes carried a glimmer of hope. Actually, it's not that there is no chance at all. As long as you can dig out primal stones, you can receive a reward from the Black Fiend sect. You can even become a disciple of the Black Fiend sect. It is said that several people have really dug out primal stones and received a lot of rewards. What are primal stones? Chapter 68. As for these old miners, Sui couldn't help but sympathize with them. The Black Fiend sect's black kiln was completely oppressing everyone, but it also made them feel as if there was a last glimmer of hope, so that they wouldn't completely despair and collapse. It had to be said that the Black Fiend sect's strategy was really good. It captured the weakness of human nature. Of course, Sui didn't care about this. He was thinking about how to escape. This was definitely not a place to stay for long. Following Sui's question, many of the resting miners looked at Sui in surprise and curiosity, as if they were looking at a monster. There was someone who didn't even know about primal crystal stones? Primal stones are divided into various attributes and grades, but primal crystal stones are not the same. Primal crystal stones are a special kind of primal stone. They don't have any attributes and are the purest things. Therefore, after being refined by a powerhouse, they are usually used as testing stones. A piece of the most ordinary primal crystal stone is equivalent to a piece of primal stone at the edge of 3 stars. Someone opened his mouth and replied to Sui's question. Sui raised his eyes and followed the voice to see a skinny old man. It was the skinny old man that he had been paying attention to. This made Sui a little surprised. As for the primal crystal stone, Sui suddenly realized that the primal crystal stone was the primal crystal stone. Back in the barbarian city, the primal crystal stone that Wang Chuanda had brought seemed to have been swallowed and absorbed by the mysterious space in his mind. A piece of primal crystal stone was equivalent to a piece of 3 stars primal stone. This made Sui very moved. Sui naturally knew about the grades of primal stones. Generally speaking, primal stones were divided into 1 star to 7 stars. Now, the primal stones circulating among martial artists were almost all 1-star primal stones. Even 2-star primal stones were extremely rare, not to mention 3-star primal stones. The grades of primal stones were exchanged in a 100 system. A 2-star primal stone was equivalent to 101-star primal stones, and a 3-star primal stone was equivalent to 102-star primal stones, which was equivalent to 10,000 1-star primal stones. But under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to exchange a 3-star primal stone for 102-star primal stones, let alone 10,000 1-star primal stones. The higher the grade of the primeval stone, the purer the energy. Exchanging high-grade primeval stones for low-grade primeval stones was an invisible loss. These miners were willing to mine for 3 months in exchange for 3 origin stones. Of course, they were only 1-star origin stones. Moreover, it was a high price. It was enough to show how valuable origin stones were. Many thanks, Senior. For better or for worse, he had answered his question. Sui clasped hands and bowed to express his thanks. Kid, how did you offend the Black Fiend sect and end up being captured here? The skinny old man looked indifferently at Sui. Back then, he had personally witnessed Sui being captured by the Black Fiend sect. Hearing this, many of the miners around also looked at Sui curiously. They had been tricked into coming here, but this kid had been captured. However, everyone's gazes were only filled with curiosity, without any sympathy. It had nothing to do with them. They couldn't even take care of themselves now, so how could they have the time to care about the life and death of others? It can only be said that people are unlucky, and can only be said that they are too weak. Sue said indifferently. He didn't say much. It seemed like there was no need for him to complain to these miners. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, no one would care about the so-called grievances. That was just a reflection of weakness. Besides, Sue wasn't that kind of person. If there was a chance, he would definitely settle this debt with the Black Fiend sect. Are there really origin stones here? How come I don't see any? A new miner asked an old miner. He hadn't seen any origin stones since he came in. Of course there are. The ones in front have all been dug out. The old miner who had said that he had been here for 4 months said, "When I came in, I saw with my own eyes that there were origin stones everywhere. There were a lot of origin stones that had been mined out. 5 days ago, when everyone thought that the origin stones had been completely mined out, the inside of the mine suddenly collapsed. It was said that hundreds of people were buried alive. It was a tragic sight." He paused for a moment. The old miner still had some lingering fear. If he hadn't been outside at that time, he probably would have been killed. He then continued, "Later, the people of the Black Fiend sect found that there should be another layer of origin stones in the mine. It is very likely that this is a mine within a mine." Mine within a mine? Then isn't the Black Fiend sect going to be rich? Hearing this, some people were immediately shocked. When these words were spoken, the skinny old man's eyes flickered without leaving a trace. Then, they returned to calmness. Then, from these people's whispers, Sue also learned what a mine within a mine was. As the name implied, a mine within a mine was a mine within a mine that hid another mine. And a mine within a mine was extremely rare. Generally speaking, the origin stones in a mine within a mine would have a lower quality on the surface, but the quality inside would be better. The Black Fiend sect's origin stone mine produced 1-star origin stones. But now that a mine within a mine had been discovered, it was very likely that there would be 2-star origin stones inside. If they could find a 2-star origin stone mine, then it would be of great significance to the Black Fiend sect. It might not be a mine within a mine. Even if it is a mine within a mine, there might not be much of it, someone said. He didn't look young and seemed to have a lot of experience in origin stone mines. "No, I feel that it should be a mine within a mine. Recently, the layer of rock inside has been getting harder and harder. Perhaps it won't be long before we can dig out a second layer of origin stones," another miner said. "Fuck. Look at section asterisk of chapter asterisk. What are you all chattering about? Do you want to die? If you have the energy to chat, then get up and get to work." Suddenly, the several Black Fiend sect disciples who had been keeping watch came back. Their faces were gloomy and their gazes were sharp. "Is your new disciple itching for a beating? Get to work." A Black Fiend sect disciple kicked a new miner, sending his body flying. The new miner smashed into the rock wall and spat out blood. His aura immediately weakened and his face was deathly pale. He immediately struggled to get up, not daring to speak. The surrounding people were even more shocked and immediately got to work. You and you little brat are responsible for moving these rocks out." Also, one of the men from Black Fiend's sect, who looked like the leader, extended his hand and pointed. He also looked at Sue and pointed at the pile of rocks in the mine. They needed to be pushed out with carts. "Sir, let this old man go too. My legs are fast, so I can move them faster." The skinny old man smiled and rushed over. He bowed and nodded to the Black Fiend sect disciple, hoping that he would also be able to move the rock. "All right, you and this little brat will be in a group. Hurry up, or else you'll be in for a treat." The large man nodded, indicating for the skinny old man to be in a group with Sue. Sue was a bit surprised, but he didn't show it. He felt that this skinny old man definitely had some secrets and was plotting something. Without leaving any traces, Sue and the skinny old man picked up the cart of rock. It really was heavy. Although it didn't seem like much, it actually weighed at least 3,000 pounds. If it weren't for the fact that the cart was specially made, it probably wouldn't have been able to support such a weight. 2 carts were pushed by 4 people. In front of Sue were 2 old miners, and behind him was a young Black Fiend sect disciple who was urging him on. Sue was having a hard time. He had already been completely exhausted, and hadn't had a chance to rest. He had been listening to them talk about the mine, and hadn't been able to circulate his energy to recover. It didn't take long for Sue to begin to feel the strain. The cart he was pushing was clearly shaking. At this time, Sue suddenly felt that pushing the cart was much easier. It wasn't as strenuous as before. It's him helping. Sue felt it and looked at the skinny old man. It was the skinny old man who was helping. Little brat, hurry up. Don't dilly-dally. The skinny old man looked at Sue indifferently. Chapter 69. These extremely heavy rocks had to be transported out of the mine by manpower. Although savage beasts had great strength, there were many tunnels in the mine. Most savage beasts would not be able to enter. Taming a savage beast also required a lot of manpower and resources. The Black Fiend sect was not stupid. They might as well rely on manpower. Sue pushed the cart. With the help of the skinny old man, it was a lot easier for him. Along the way, he secretly memorized the route in his heart so that if he had the chance, he would not be able to leave the mine. At night, the mountain range was pitch black. Between the canyon and the mountain range, dark blue peaks overlapped. Within the stone hall, the Black Fiend sect's gray-robed elder white, a black-clothed youth, and an old man who looked to be in his 50s were seated. The old man in his 50s was dressed in a long gown. His sharp gaze proved that his cultivation was definitely not weak. I did not expect Elder White to personally come this time. Thank you, Elder White. The old man in his 50s was very respectful in front of Elder White with a smile in his eyes. The young master came out for a walk to broaden his horizons. Since I have nothing to do, I will accompany the young master. We are all elders of the Black Fiend sect. Elder, you need not be so polite. Elder White nodded and smiled. Young master is a young hero. At such a young age, you have already reached the first level of the profound origin realm. In the future, your future will be limitless. The old man who was addressed as Elder said to the black-clothed youth. Although his words had a hint of flattery, the shock in his expression was genuine. At the age of 17, he had already reached the first level of the profound origin realm. This kind of talent was something that not many people in the entire savage demon forest could compare to. Elder Yu is too kind. My father specially instructed me to listen to Elder White on the way here. Now that I have arrived here, I must listen to Elder Yu. I must also represent him to thank Elder Yu for guarding the mine. Thank you for your hard work, the black-clothed youth said. Although his words seemed polite, his expression revealed a bit of arrogance. The Black Fiend sect was his family. He did not know why his father always told him to be humble in front of the elders. He was the young master of the Black Fiend sect. Sooner or later, he would become the pillar of the Black Fiend sect. Should these elders not respect him? Of course, this was his father's order, and the black-clothed youth didn't dare to show it. Thank you for your concern, sect master. This is part of my duty, and I will do my best. Young sect master, please don't be courteous. However, this place is completely desolate, and I'm afraid there is nothing to entertain young sect master. Perhaps I'll have to disappoint young sect master, said Elder Yu. I know this place is a desolate mountain range. I came here because I wanted to find some wild beasts to practice with. I see that tonight's night is pretty good. Why don't you guys go about your business, and I'll take a few people with me for a stroll? The black-clothed youth's eyes shone. His purpose in coming here was purely to practice. In the Black Fiend sect, it wasn't a problem to find a few savage beasts to practice with. However, the Black Fiend sect did not have the exhilaration of the wilderness. The feeling was completely different. What he wanted was to be able to roam freely in the outside world. He was really tired of training with those caged savage beasts. Young sect master, you can't. In this desolate mountain range, although the level of the savage beasts won't be too high, I'm still afraid of encountering a wandering savage beast expert. Young sect master is the future of the Black Fiend sect. You can't have any accidents. Hearing this, Elder Bai immediately shook his head. This time, the sect master had personally handed the person over to him. The sect master had asked him to check on the progress of the mine and collect the previous batch of primeval stones. However, how could he not know that compared to the mine, the most important thing was the young sect master in front of him? If something happened to the young sect master this time, he would be the one to suffer. Even if the young sect master lost a single strand of hair, when he returned, the merit of this trip would be gone. Young sect master, you can't. How about this, tomorrow morning, I'll personally accompany young sect master for a stroll. Elder Yu's expression darkened. If something happened to the young sect master in his territory, he wouldn't have a good time either. What's so fun in the day? It's too boring. Hunting at night is more fun. The black-clothed youth was somewhat disappointed. This time, he came out to find something new. Otherwise, he wouldn't be as comfortable as the Black Fiend sect. This, Elder Yu's eyes secretly moved. He didn't want the young sect master to come here and be disappointed. This wasn't good for him. No matter what, this young master was the young sect master of the Black Fiend sect. How about this, young sect master? Since Elder Bai has personally come, if young sect master really wants to go hunting at night, I'll personally accompany young sect master. I'll have to trouble Elder Bai with the mine. I wonder what Elder Bai thinks? Elder Yu asked Elder Bai. Although they were both elders, Elder Yu clearly knew that Elder Yu's position was much higher than his. Elder Yu was ranked third in the Black Fiend sect's elder group. Elder Yu's strength was also higher than his, and he was also one of the sect master's trusted aides. Good, this is also not bad. At least I can go experience it at night. If I can kill a few demon profound realm level savage beasts, then this trip will not be in vain. Hearing this, the black-clothed youth was very happy. If he could kill a few demon profound realm level savage beasts, he would definitely be proud of among his companions when he returned. Okay, but don't go too far. Just stay nearby. Elder Bai looked at the black-clothed youth's happy and expectant face and didn't want to pour cold water on him. He nodded and then instructed Elder Yu, "Then I'll leave young sect master to Elder Yu. You must take good care of him." "Yes, Elder Bai." Elder Yu nodded. He knew that there weren't any powerful savage beasts in the vicinity. Moreover, he would also carefully observe. He was afraid that this young sect master was just looking for a sense of novelty. K4 Look at the V. Version MZ Chapter W3 Section 3 Inches The Wilderness. This young sect master wouldn't be in the mood to go hunting in the middle of the night. Outside the mine, there was a place where these rocks were piled up. Inside the mine, there were precious pearls that were shining. No one knew the passage of time in the mine, but when Su-Yi pushed the rocks out, the moon was already high in the blue sky. However, the surroundings of the mine were as bright as day. The Black Fiend sect's disciples were not careless. Instead, they were even more vigilant. A few hundred feet away from the mine, there was a deep valley. All the rocks were transported into the deep valley. Rumble, just like the two old miners, Su-Yi and the skinny old man pushed the rocks in the cart into the deep valley. The rocks rolled down, and a rumbling sound could be heard. It seemed that this deep valley was not shallow. Huff huff! Chapter 70. Su-Yi took the opportunity to size up his surroundings, thinking of a way to escape. If he were to make a move now, this young Black Fiend sect disciple was roughly at the profound origin realm. If he were to ambush him, he might have a chance. However, the most difficult part was whether or not he would attract the attention of the other Black Fiend sect disciples. Once he was noticed, he would have no chance at all. If he did not attract the attention of the Black Fiend sect disciples in the distance, he might have a chance at survival. At this moment, there were no other Black Fiend sect disciples several hundred meters away from the mine. Sui rapidly calculated in his mind. Was this chance great? Are you itching for a beating? Hurry up and go in. Do you want to die? When the young Black Fiend sect disciple saw the two old miners resting, he fiercely shouted and kicked one of them without any trace of politeness. Bang! The old miner's skinny body staggered a few steps from the kick. Hurry up! This young Black Fiend sect disciple was very ruthless and cold-blooded. He raised his leg and kicked the second old miner. Whoosh! At this moment, Sui made his decision. If he returned to the mine, he did not know if he would have a chance to come out. If he wanted to escape from the mine, the chances would be at least 10 times more difficult than now. Without much time to hesitate, it seemed that this was the right time. The opportunity had arrived. Sui made his move. He grabbed an extremely heavy rock that was scattered to the side and used it with the rising Yao 100 transformation step. Just as the young Black Fiend sect disciple raised his second leg, Sui's figure appeared behind him. Explosively attacking and circulating his Yuan Qi, Sui ruthlessly smashed the rock into the back of the former's head. All of this happened in one breath, as fast as lightning. Underhanded methods were Sui's specialty. Bang! A muffled sound was immediately heard. The young Black Fiend sect disciple probably did not know what had happened. He simply did not expect that a miner would dare to underhandedly attack him. The back of his head was smashed open and blood splattered everywhere. Sui used his full strength. With such strength, the young Black Fiend sect disciple's skull was smashed to smithereens, and he immediately breathed his last. This scene happened too quickly, so quickly that the skinny old man didn't even have time to react. By the time the skinny old man reacted, the young Black Fiend sect disciple had already breathed his last and collapsed to the ground. The two old miners were even more shocked. They never thought that this seemingly honest youth would actually have such courage and daring to directly kill a disciple of the Black Fiend sect. Everyone quickly jump down and escape. There's still a chance of survival. If we go back, we'll be looking for death. Sui said to the skinny old man and the two old miners whose faces were still filled with shock. When he spoke, he did not stop at all. He turned around and was about to jump into the gorge. Below him was a deep valley, so there should be a passage. Although it was pitch black, Sui did not know what would happen if he jumped down. However, if he were to return to the mine, it would truly be dark. Young man, I can't help it. Who told you to bump into me? Suddenly, at this moment, Sui heard a sound that sounded like the buzz of a mosquito. Such a sound could only be heard by Sui alone. As the sound entered his ears, Sui's body, which had just turned around, suddenly froze, as if he was being pulled by something. Immediately, a loud shout came from behind him. Not good. Murder. Someone killed a senior from the Black Fiend sect. Such a voice was very loud, enough to spread in all directions in the dark night. Sui quickly turned his head. The person behind him was none other than the skinny old man, who was actually pulling on his clothes with one hand. As the loud shout came out, Sui's expression changed greatly. His subconscious reaction was to directly shake his arm, and a simple and direct punch exploded toward the skinny old man. Yuan Qi in his meridians produced a rumbling sound, gathering in his fist and shaking the air. This was not the Overlord fist, but Sui had subconsciously used all his strength. Its power was not ordinary. Someone's been killed. Help! The skinny old man continued to shout, but his figure took the opportunity to dodge Sui's punch. He seemed to be in a difficult situation, but he also directly arrived at Su Yi's side, not letting go of the hand that was pulling on Su Yi's ragged clothes. Chi-La, Su Yi did not know what was going on, but he felt that the skinny old man took the opportunity to fling him. A force that could be considered gentle was continuous and heavy, and it directly sent him flying. MF, I knew KM most fast carrot you up then. Su Yi was flung dozens of feet away, and it looked like Su Yi himself had lost his balance and slipped. Chi-La Su Yi's body brushed against the ground, his 4 feet facing the sky. Strong, very strong. At this moment, only Su Yi knew that the skinny old man was definitely a strong person. He had deliberately become a miner, and there must be a reason. Audacious, do you want to die? The loud shout from just now had immediately alerted the Black Fiend sect disciples, and one figure after another rushed over. Su Yi was not injured. Just as he was about to hastily climb up, many figures had already rushed over. Waves of fierce aura spread out, and various kinds of fierce blades, spears, swords, halberds, and other weapons were pointed at Su Yi from all directions. Stay still, don't move. A Black Fiend sect disciple yelled at Su Yi. There were also Black Fiend sect disciples who immediately went to check on the young disciple. It's over. Su Yi's face was grim to the extreme. At this moment, there were more than 10 disciples from the Black Fiend sect, and there were still others rushing over. The cultivation of any one of them was likely above his own. Amongst them, there was even the aura of an essence spirit realm cultivator. The 2 old miners had yet to recover from their shock, and were also tightly surrounded. He killed him, he was killed by that brat. It was that brat who killed the Black Fiend sex lord. It has nothing to do with us. The 2 old miners were flustered and terrified, and their faces were filled with shock as they pointed at Su Yi. Human nature, Su Yi helplessly sighed. This was human nature. At this moment, the person Su Yi hated the most was naturally the skinny old man. Just now, he had wanted to let the skinny old man leave with him, but he had not expected that the skinny old man would bite the hand that fed him. Where is he? At this moment, when Su Yi looked at the instigator, he was immediately stunned. The skinny old man who had been there just a moment ago had actually disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had completely disappeared without a trace. Dead. The burly man who was checking on the Black Fiend sect disciple killed by Su Yi stood up, shook his head, and said to the other Black Fiend sect disciples, "That disciple was already deader than dead. How dare you, you're courting death." A Black Fiend sect disciple shouted, and kicked Su Yi. Bang! This kick contained a lot of strength. That Black Fiend sect disciple had a cultivation of the profound origin realm, so Su Yi was sent flying. Poochie, this kind of strength entered Su Yi's body, causing his chi and blood to churn. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body heavily smashed into the ground. This brat seems to be someone brought by Elder Bai. Keep him alive first, report to Elder Bai, and then punish him. The burly man who had just checked on the Black Fiend sect disciple spoke with an indifferent expression and continued, "Search for him, there's still one who escaped, find him for me." Whoosh whoosh. Hearing this, the surrounding Black Fiend sect disciples immediately scattered and chased in all directions. They did not even enter the deep valley, and some Black Fiend sect disciples directly fell into the valley. Chi-Chi, the burly man who had just spoken, seemed to have the highest status in this group of Black Fiend sect disciples. He immediately reached Su Yi's side, and several energy winds descended, placing a restriction on Su Yi's body, and said, "Take these 2 inside, and this brat into the prison cell to be guarded, and wait for his punishment." Yes, 2 Black Fiend sect disciples, one lifted Su Yi onto his shoulder, and the other escorted the 2 old miners, bringing the 3 of them back to the mine. "Chase, I want to see where he can escape to." The remaining Black Fiend sect disciples also joined in the pursuit of the skinny old man. Su Yi was once again restricted, and at this moment, 10,000 alpacas galloped through his heart towards the skinny old man. If it weren't for that skinny old man, he definitely would have had a chance to escape. Chapter 71. Brat, just you wait. You're really tired of living. Su-yi was brought back to the mine and thrown into a cell. The so-called cell was just a stone room that seemed to have been temporarily opened in the mine. The stone room wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. There was a thick stone door. The Black Fiend sect's disciple looked to be in his 30s. After throwing Su-yi into the stone room, he closed the stone door. Su-yi listened to the voice. The Black Fiend sect's disciple should be waiting outside. Break through the restriction. This is my last chance. Su-yi was thrown into the cell by the restriction. However, this was his last chance. The Origin Supreme technique could break through the restriction. Hopefully, he could take the opportunity to escape. Without any delay, he immediately operated the Origin Supreme technique. Just like when he was trying to break through the restriction placed by Elder Bai, Su-yi began to break through the restriction placed by the Black Fiend sect's disciple. As he tried, Su-yi was secretly overjoyed. The restriction placed by the Black Fiend sect's disciple couldn't be compared to Elder Bai's. It was much weaker. He felt that breaking through this restriction would be much easier. Secretly breaking through the restriction in his body with all his strength, Su-yi's mind was solemn. He was racing against time. He was afraid that when the experts of the Black Fiend sect arrived, his life would be in danger. The consequences of killing someone from the Black Fiend sect could be imagined. Boom, rumble, not long after, a violent sound came from outside. The earth shook and the mountains swayed. The rumbling sound was endless, like an earthquake. How dare you trespass into my Black Fiend sect's territory? Get out here. Immediately, the sound was like thunder. Su-yi, who was in the cell, could hear it clearly. Someone is trespassing. Quick, quick, someone is invading my Black Fiend sect. Soon after, a commotion could be heard outside the cave. The Black Fiend sect's disciples hurriedly left. Rumble, whoa. Outside the mine, there were continuous muffled sounds and screams. There were also the deafening roars of savage beasts. Behave yourselves, or else you'll get it. Within the mine, there were also disciples of the Black Fiend sect berating him. It seemed that the miners had also started to become restless. Some of the Black Fiend sect's disciples were left behind to suppress the miners. It seems like the Black Fiend sect is in trouble. This is an excellent opportunity. Quickly reopen the seal. Su-yi's eyes flickered. Someone had come to invade the Black Fiend sect. He didn't know which power it was, but no matter who it was, this was a rare opportunity for him. However, the restriction on his body was still there. Su-yi sped up and went all out. The Black Fiend sect disciple who had set up the seal didn't seem to be particularly strong. The Origin Supreme technique was also very special. Under Su-yi's full power, it didn't take him much time to reopen the seal. Poochie, when the restriction was broken, Su-yi immediately stood up and spat out a mouthful of blood. This injury was caused by the Black Fiend sect's disciple's kick. The injury wasn't light, but fortunately, Su-yi wasn't seriously injured. Escape. Ignoring the injuries on his body, Su-yi knew that this was a rare opportunity. The Black Fiend sect's disciple guarding outside the prison was no longer there. If he didn't escape now, when would he? Listening to the movements outside the stone door, Su-yi was sure that there was no one outside the prison. Touching the stone door, Su-yi gently pushed it. He felt that the stone door was very heavy and thick. It was made from extremely heavy rocks that had been mined. This stone door should have some kind of mechanism that could only be opened from the outside. It seemed like it could only be opened from the inside by force. Let's give it a try. Without any other choice, Su-yi could only forcefully push open the stone door. Immediately, his palm pressed against the stone door. At the same time, the Yuan Qi in Su Yi's Yuan Qi whirlpool surged out from his meridians. It turned into a powerful force that poured onto the stone door, wanting to forcefully open it. Boom! The stone door trembled, as if it was about to be forcefully pushed open. Suddenly, all of a sudden, without any warning, there was an unforeseen change in the tranquil atmosphere. Rumble! At this moment, just as Su Yi's Yuan Qi poured onto the stone door, the mysterious ball of light in Su Yi's mind seemed to be attracted by something and suddenly moved. Suddenly, a ray of light burst out from Su Yi's mind. A mysterious force swept out like lightning, making Su Yi unable to block it. But at this moment, Su Yi could clearly feel that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was emitting a strange force that directly covered the stone door. Strictly speaking, at this moment, Su Yi could feel that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was devouring some kind of energy within the stone door, some kind of weak energy. This feeling was familiar to Su Yi. It was exactly the same as when he was in front of the Yuan testing stone in the barbarian city. The mysterious ball of light had a power. At this moment, it was devouring the weak energy within the stone door, just like how it had devoured the energy from the Yuan testing stone. Could it be related to the Yuan stones? Su Yi was surprised, but immediately thought of a few possibilities. This stone door was made of this ore. This was a Yuan stone mine. Most likely, this stone door was not made of Yuan stones, but it might contain some energy within. The Yuan testing stone was also a kind of Yuan stone. Back then, the mysterious ball of light had devoured the Yuan testing stone. Therefore, it was highly possible that the mysterious ball of light could not only devour the Yuan testing stone, but could also devour all Yuan stones. Su Yi was in shock as he pondered. He could not control his body, but he could clearly feel that a devouring force had formed in his palm, and was absorbing the weak energy within the stone door like a silk cocoon. But at this moment, the energy within the mysterious ball of light did not stop there. A strange force passed through Su Yi's palm and directly surged into the stone door. Then, it seemed to want to explore even deeper. Walala! Just as Su Yi felt that the weak energy within the stone door would be sucked dry in an instant, from the ground and the ceiling of the prison cell that the stone door was connected to, a small amount of weak energy gathered and was immediately devoured. Walala! This weak energy continued to strengthen at an unimaginable speed in the blink of an eye. Boom! The weak energy became rich in an instant, and then gathered in front of Su Yi's palm, turning into a surge of energy that was directly absorbed and devoured. Boom! Inside the stone door, the ground and the ceiling of the prison cell began to shine brightly, revealing a mixture of gold, black, green, red, white, blue and many other kinds of light. The multicolored light enveloped Su Yi and filled the entire prison cell. In particular, the place where Su Yi's palm was pressed against the stone door was even more dazzling, like a small sun. Rumble! The entire prison cell trembled and swayed. The ground quaked and the mountains swayed, as if it would collapse at any moment. Not good, the mine is going to collapse again. Get out quickly! The whole mine is going to collapse, get out quickly! Chapter 72. If the mine collapsed, everyone would be buried. There was no way they could survive. At this moment, the disciples of the Black Fiends sect did not dare to stay. No one wanted to lose their lives. They were even scrambling to escape. Not long ago, a part of the mine had collapsed. The consequences were still lingering in their hearts. Dozens of people, including several disciples of the same sect, were directly smashed into meat paste. Their flesh and blood were badly mutilated. It was too horrible to look at. Rumble! The light was resplendent and dazzling. Su Yi was thoroughly shocked. Where did such a terrifying and rich energy come from? Compared to the energy on the primeval testing stone in the sacred mountain, who knew how much stronger it was? The energy inside the stone door was clearly very weak. How could it suddenly become so majestic? Moreover, according to the old miners, the primeval stones in the mine had clearly been extracted. Could it be? Sui remembered something. An old miner had said that this might be a mine. Could it be? Sui remembered something. An old miner had said that this might be a mine within a mine. In the depths of the mine, there might be another layer of primeval stones. The quality might even be better. And this stone door was connected to the mine. It was like a wire conducting electricity. At this moment, the energy inside the mysterious light was absorbing the weak energy inside the stone door. It also sensed that there was another layer of primeval stones in the mine, so it directly absorbed them together. Rumble. The earth in the prison shook. The light was so bright that Sui could no longer open his eyes. It was dazzling. Sui could only feel a rich and surging energy. Under the mysterious power of the mysterious light, it was crazily being absorbed and swallowed. Latest chapter section #Z above AAT. The same time, the mysterious light in Sui's mind was also blooming with a dazzling light. It was like a sun rising in his mind. In fact, it did not take too long. In about a moment, this astonishing movement calmed down and the light dissipated. Deng deng. A huge impact force poured into Sui's palm. He staggered back a few steps and almost fell to the ground. Caw-caw. Subtle cracking sounds came out. The thick stone door in front of him now had cracks from the inside out. More and more cracks appeared, forming a dense spiderweb. Then, the entire thick stone door quietly collapsed, turning into a pile of powder under Sui's shocked gaze. Outside the prison cell, many rocks tumbled down, but no one could be seen. It seemed that all the Black Fiend's school disciples and miners had fled. Sui did not dare to stop. Vital chi surged under his feet, and he immediately flew out of the cell. Inside the mine, faint cracking sounds could be heard from time to time, as if something was cracking. The mine looked like it was about to collapse at any moment. Occasionally, small pieces of rock would fall down. Soon, Sui escaped from the mine. Ow! Bang bang bang! Outside the mine, it was a chaotic mess. Low and deep sounds of sonic booms and the roars of beasts lingered on incessantly. The radiance was dazzling, blossoming in the night sky, making the mountain range seem like it was daytime. Sui looked up and saw 3 figures fighting fiercely in the sky. Rumble, the 3 figures were surrounded by a dazzling radiance. Energy swept out like a storm, glistening with light, and a vast aura swept out in all directions. Among the 3 figures, Sui recognized 2 of them. The Black Fiend School's elder Bai was one of them. The other was none other than the thin and small old man who tricked Sui once. The last person Sui had never seen before. He was also an old man in his 50s. At this moment, he was besieging the thin and small old man together with Elder Bai. From the aura, Sui could tell that although the second old man's cultivation was not as high as Elder Bai's, he was definitely not much weaker. He should be able to determine that he was definitely an expert from the Black Fiend School. Origin Void Stage Expert. What shocked Sui even more was that these 3 people were not using vital chi to step into the air, but were actually floating in the air. To be able to do this, it undoubtedly proved that these 3 people had reached the Origin Void stage. Come here, or I'll kill you first. As Sui swept out of the mine, a Black Fiend School expert coldly shouted. Not far away, his gaze was fixed on Sui. There were many Black Fiend School disciples in the surroundings, intimidating the group of miners in the surroundings. However, at this moment, the Black Fiend sect's disciples were trembling as they watched the intense battle taking place in the sky. That was a battle between experts. They would not even be affected by the shockwaves. With the Black Fiend School's experts staring at him, Sui slowly walked over, not daring to take the risk. Fortunately, no one recognized Sui at this moment. Not long ago, Sui killed a Black Fiend School disciple. Only a dozen Black Fiend School disciples saw it, but they were not in the vicinity. Moreover, Everyone was paying attention to the battle in the sky, so no one paid much attention to Su-yi. Thinking about how to escape, Su-yi's gaze was also fixed on the sky. The skinny old man who had tricked Su-yi released his aura at this moment. He was incomparably powerful. Even though he was fighting against Elder Bai and the other two Black Fiend sect experts, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Who are you? How dare you have designs on my Black Fiend school? My Black Fiend school will not let you go even if you ascend to the heavens. A gloomy voice came out of Elder Bai's mouth. His voice was mixed with Yuan Qi, and it reverberated throughout the mountain range. It was deafening, like thunder. So what if you're from the Black Fiend school? The skinny old man laughed and formed a hand seal. Yuan Qi surged, and a terrifying aura swept out, forming a gale in the sky. He directly collided with Elder Bai and Elder Bai, not falling into a disadvantageous position. Very, very strong. I'm afraid he's comparable to Wang Chuanda. Su-yi was stunned. Although he wanted to kick the skinny old man a few times in his heart, he could not help but secretly narrow his eyes when he felt the old man's strength. There was a burning sensation in his throat. This skinny old man was actually so strong. Su-yi listened to Elder Bai's words. It seemed that this skinny old man had taken the Black Fiend school's Yuan stones. Could it be that this guy came to the mine for the Yuan stones in the mine? Su-yi pondered. With this skinny old man's strength, how could he become a miner? He must have deliberately snuck in. For the Yuan stones in the mine, he even dared to have designs on the Black Fiend school. What a reckless thing. You even dare to have designs on the Black Fiend school. Don't think of leaving today. Tsk. Elder Bai laughed coldly. The aura on his body erupted, shaking the sky. Swish! As Elder Bai's voice fell, a sharp sound of breaking wind was heard. Under the illumination of the energy light, two flashing dots of light appeared in the sky, expanding in an instant. Not good. The skinny old man's expression immediately darkened. He did not expect that the Black Fiend school still had experts nearby. They had already rushed over. How dare you offend my Black Fiend school? Are you courting death? A sinister chuckle sounded from afar. Soon after, the two dots of light grew larger and larger. In an instant, they stepped on the air and appeared in the sky. Chapter 73. At this moment, Su-yi finally understood why the Black Fiend sect could become one of the three major powers in the barbaric demon forest. All of a sudden, 4 Origin Void Realm experts appeared. How powerful was the Black Fiend sect's lineup? Seeing that 2 more Origin Void Realm cultivators had arrived, the skinny old man's expression truly changed. He didn't seem to have any confidence in fighting 1 against 4. Half a month ago, my Black Fiend sect's trading company was robbed. 10 days ago, my Black Fiend sect's medicinal herbs were stolen. It seems that it was also your doing? At this moment, with the addition of the 2 Black Fiend sect experts, Elder Bai and the other Yuan Void stage experts stopped their attack. They were no longer in a hurry. The other party was already a turtle in a jar. The skinny old man looked at the 4 Origin Void Realm cultivators around him. His eyes shined and he said in a low voice, "It seems like you all came prepared, right? Kiki, that's right. Offending my Black Fiend sect twice in a row. This is provoking my Black Fiend sect. If there is one, then there will definitely be a third. Although we don't know where your next target will be, it will definitely be an important target of my Black Fiend sect. Therefore, I'm not afraid to tell you that all the important places of my Black Fiend sect have been set up with traps, waiting for you to come in. Today, I want to see who exactly you are. Who gave you the courage to offend my Black Fiend sect?" Elder Bai sneered. Everything had been set up long ago. However, this mine was considered a bit remote. Therefore, the Black Fiend sect's strongest lineup and experts had yet to come. However, this place had also made absolute preparations. There were experts watching from not far away, making it convenient for all parties to surround and annihilate at any time. Elder Bai didn't expect that he would really encounter this guy. Capturing this guy could be considered a great contribution. So that old guy has already targeted the Black Fiend sect several times. Su Yi's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect that the skinny old man had already targeted the Black Fiend sect several times. He actually didn't put the Black Fiend sect in his eyes. "Do you really think that you can stop me if I want to leave?" The skinny old man's eyes glowed coldly. Although he was inwardly serious, he also had confidence and certainty. "Kiki, then let's see. You can't escape even if you have wings." Elder Bai's cold words fell, and at the same time, he attacked again. His hand seals were formed, and a sharp aura swept out from his palm. Golden light filled the air, and waves of golden light formed in front of him, like golden light arcs. After which, they swept towards the skinny old man from all directions. "Do it." When they saw Elder Bai make a move, the other 3 Origin Void stage experts from the Black Fiend sect weren't willing to be outdone, and they made a move in unison. Boom, one after another, the attacks carried Yuan Qi of various attribute. The light was dazzling and the momentum was surging. Low muffled sounds spread out in the night sky. Bang bang! Despite being surrounded by 4 experts, the skinny old man was like duckweed as he dodged 2 of the attacks. He extended both of his hands, causing light to erupt and Yuan Qi to surge. He directly resisted the attacks, causing a terrifying gale of energy to erupt. After the skinny old man withstood the first wave of attacks from the 4 experts, he charged out in a tyrannical manner. Yuan power surged in his hand, emitting waves of turbulent energy ripples. After which, he directly smashed out. "Not good, R7s." At this moment, Su Yi's expression instantly changed. The skinny old man wasn't attacking others, but the group of people underground. Strictly speaking, the skinny old man's attack was aimed at the group of Black Fiend sect disciples on the ground, but he didn't show any mercy to the group of miners, including Su Yi. "Everyone retreat, be careful." Seeing the skinny old man suddenly attacking the people below, Elder Bai and the others immediately shouted and blocked in a panic. Elder Bai and the others were well aware of the skinny old man's strength. The other Black Fiend sect disciples were simply no match for him. Qi La. 2 Origin Void stage experts from the Black Fiend sect blocked the skinny old man's attack, while Elder Bai and the other old man continued to attack the skinny old man. Rumble, although the 2 Origin Void stage experts were in a panic, they barely managed to block the skinny old man's attack. Bang bang. But at this moment, the terrifying gale of energy swept out, creating huge ravines below, causing sand and rocks to fly. Instantly, the Black Fiend sect disciples and miners who were retreating in a panic let out miserable wails. Those who were closer to the shockwave were directly sent flying. Thud thud. The others also staggered back, creating chaos for a moment. Fortunately, Su Yi was quite far away and was already prepared to retreat. However, he was still impacted, causing his retreating body to stagger forward. Escape. Suddenly, it was also at this moment that Su Yi knew his opportunity had arrived. It was a rare opportunity. Qi La borrowing the momentum from his staggered body, Su Yi's origin qi surged under his feet. A white light flickered as he stepped out with the soaring 100 transformation step. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he charged into the mountain forest ahead. The surroundings were in chaos. The impact was too great. Many Black Fiend sect experts were seriously affected. After all, the skinny old man was mainly targeting the Black Fiend sect disciples. Seeing Elder Bai and the other person besieging him again, the skinny old man's face turned gloomy. A chill flashed across his eyes. Then, from between his eyebrows, there was an energy fluctuation. As if it had materialized, the energy condensed into 2 snake shadows in an instant. The snake shadows were like real objects. Their bodies were covered in snake scales and had white snake fangs, as if they were alive. Two strange auras that made one's heart palpitate immediately spread out from the two small snakes and swept towards Elder Bai and the other person. Soul attack. An alchemist? Looking at the two small snakes and feeling the strange aura, Elder Bai's expression suddenly became unprecedentedly solemn. That was a soul attack. The other party could actually be an alchemist. Su-yi ran away, not daring to stay in the slightest. Bang bang! The astonishing muffled sounds constantly came from behind, causing Su-yi's heart to tremble. That was a battle at the Yuan Void stage. Just the aftermath alone was not something an ordinary cultivator could contend against. At this moment, Su-yi was not the slightest bit interested in the outcome of the battle between the skinny old man and the Black Fiend sect's Elder Bai. At this moment, Su-yi only wanted to safely escape. Regardless of the outcome of the battle between the Black Fiend sect and the skinny old man, it would be beneficial to him. After all, they were both his enemies. However, Su-yi's heart trembled as he rapidly fled from the astonishing battle just now. He did not know when he would be able to reach such a stage. Not being careless, Su-yi's mind was also paying attention to his surroundings. Only when he felt that there were no Black Fiend sect members chasing after him did he relax a little. Chapter 74. Under the faint moonlight, Su-yi looked around. His figure was like a ghost as he shuttled into the forest. Although he had temporarily shaken off the Black Fiend sect, Su-yi did not dare to be careless. He was afraid that the disciples of the Black Fiend sect would chase after him. After all, he was still too weak. Deep in the forest, under the moonlight, Su-yi did not know how far he had run, until a ray of light appeared in the east. Huff, huff, Su-yi was panting. He could not endure it any longer. After all, his body was still injured. After a night of running, he could not endure it any longer. A mountain range appeared in front of him. After a while, Su-yi found a hidden natural cave. After taking measures to conceal himself, he entered. The cave was not big, but it was big enough for Su-yi to enter. Chi-la, sitting cross-legged, Su-yi immediately called out the mysterious space. A faint light rippled and rippled. Immediately after, it covered his entire body. The dazzling light was hazy, densely covering the cave. With Su-yi's injuries and consumption, he could recover faster in the mysterious space. Damn, when Su-yi entered the mysterious space, he was dumbfounded. His expression also froze. The space that was originally about 10 feet in size had now expanded to more than 100 feet. What kind of concept was 100 feet? It was almost half a kilometer in size. Compared to the original space, it had expanded by at least 10 times. More importantly, the energy in the space was so dense that it was frightening. The spiritual energy in the space was dense and oppressive. The surroundings were hazy and emitted a faint light. It was more like layers of fog. Su-yi was shocked. Looking carefully, this 100-feet space was now filled with soil and gravel. There were some changes from the original space. It's the mine. It must be, at this moment, Su-yi was sure that something had happened in the mine. The mysterious space had swallowed the energy in the mine, causing it to expand again. Just like when Mancheng had absorbed the Yuan testing stone. A mine within a mine. Su-yi was certain that the mine was a mine within a mine. The ore in the mine had not been excavated yet, but it had been swallowed and absorbed by the mysterious space. Su-yi smiled when he sensed the heaven and earth energy in the mysterious space that was so dense that it formed a mist. This could be considered as taking back some interest from the Black Fiend sect. When the Black Fiend sect discovered the results of the mining, they would definitely be flabbergasted. The source stones in the mine had long been sucked dry of energy. Time was of the essence, and they were still in the barbaric devil forest. Su-yi didn't dare to waste any time. He needed to be in peak condition at all times. Circulating the primordial origin supreme technique, Su-yi began to heal himself. At this moment, the energy of heaven and earth in this space surged as Su-yi circulated the origin supreme technique. At this moment, the energy in this space was simply surging to the point of surging, directly spreading towards Su-yi. Walala, not long after, Su-yi's body was wrapped in a circle of light. It was like a divine radiance rippling, with a domineering and majestic aura spreading out. However, at this moment, Su-yi's mind was unable to calm down. From being thrown down the cliff by Wang Chuanda to the current situation of the Black Fiend sect, it was all because he was too weak. In this place where everything depended on one's fist, he was like a fish on the chopping block. At this moment, Su-yi wanted to strengthen himself like never before. He couldn't go on like this. He was lucky enough to escape from the cliff and the Black Fiend sect's mine, but what about the next time? Would he still be so lucky? In the sky above the mine, the mountain forest was in chaos. It was a complete mess and dazzling light. The intense battle was still ongoing. Under the siege of 4 Black Fiend sect's Yuan Void stage experts, the skinny old man spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly pushed back in the air. However, at this moment, the 4 Yuan Void stage experts of the Black Fiend sect were definitely not in a good state. Amongst them, the last 2 Origin Void stage experts that came to provide support were injured as well, and they seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. You can't escape even if you have wings. Let's see how long you can resist. Seeing that the skinny old man was injured, Elder Bai's face was malicious and revealed a cold glint. As Elder Bai's voice fell, his figure instantly turned into an afterimage. He stepped on the air and shot toward the skinny old man like lightning. Raging flame exploding palm. Seeing Elder Bai rush over, the skinny old man's eyes revealed a cold intent. In an instant, he condensed a hand seal as if he was already prepared. Suddenly, rolling fire attribute Yuan Qi gushed out from the surroundings. Rumble, accompanied by a kind of energy fluctuation of heaven and earth, the skinny old man hurriedly pushed out his palm. The scarlet-red color was like a tide. Then, under the stunned gazes of Elder Bai and the 3 nearby Yuan Void stage experts, the palm seal directly exploded. Bang bang bang. This palm seal was like a bomb. In an instant, the surrounding air was torn apart as raging flames rose and poured down. Walala! The blazing aura was like a tornado that spread out in all directions, burning and destroying everything. What a powerful martial skill! The expressions of Elder Bai and the other 3 changed. They immediately attacked together and shattered the terrifying blazing energy into nothingness. Otherwise, all the Black Fiend sect disciples present would be in a tragic state. However, this delay allowed the skinny old man's figure to strangely disappear from the raging flames. He's already an arrow at the end of its flight. Over here, chase. Elder Bai looked to the side and seemed to have also found the aura of the skinny old man who fled. He immediately waved his sleeve and chased after him. Swoosh swoosh, the remaining 3 Yuan Void stage experts of the Black Fiend sect also soared into the air. Their figures were like lightning as they immediately leaped into the air. The surrounding Black Fiend sect disciples and miners watched everything that had just happened in astonishment. They could not help but click their tongues. This was a battle between experts. How powerful and terrifying was it? Every move could shake the void and shake the earth. They did not even have the strength to be affected. Within the mysterious space, Su-yi's recovery speed was very fast. His pale face began to turn rosy, the Yuan Qi in his body was abundant, and the aura on his body also began to recover. After a while, Su-yi withdrew his hand seal. The light on his body gradually dissipated, and the energy faded. As he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, his eyes opened. The light in his eyes was resplendent, but then it was restrained and turned into deep tenacity. Feeling that his body had recovered and his injuries were no longer a problem, Su-yi's eyes narrowed slightly. As a reincarnated human, could it be that I can't beat this world? From now on, I will accompany you to fight. In his tenacious eyes, light surged. Sui thought it through. The weak were prey to the strong, and he was meat on the chopping block. However, as a reincarnated human with treasures, could it be that he would always be in such a sorry state? This was definitely not what he wanted. From now on, whether it was the Sacred Mountain or the Black Fiend sect, so what if they were powerful? As a reincarnated human with the memories of his previous life and the halo of reincarnation, could he still be trampled on by them? I must become a strong expert. Chapter 75. When Sui put away the mysterious space and walked out of the hidden cave, the sun shone its last rays on the mountain range. The dusk was hazy, and the sunset was like a red leaf covering the sky. Under the setting sun, the mountain range turned dark purple, like a reef in the sea of clouds. The mountain range was continuous, and the towering mountain range overlapped and connected. The forest was endless. Some of the ancient trees were astonishing, and the towering trees seemed to reach into the sky. They were comparable to the mountains covering the sky and the sun. It was a shocking sight. In the mountain forest, some vines grew out of the mountain, and they were like dragons. The mountain forest shook, and the towering trees swayed, and the roars of beasts were heard. At this moment, dozens of savage beasts appeared and surrounded a dozen figures. Among the dozen figures, there were a few absolute powerhouses. Yuan Qi formed under their feet, and they turned into beasts with powerful auras. But at this moment there were a few powerful savage beasts in the group. Each of them was dozens of feet long, and they had sharp fangs. Some of them were covered in scales, and some of them had blade-like wings. These powerful savage beasts trapped the few powerful humans and launched a fierce attack. At the same time, the surrounding savage beasts went berserk. A ferocious bird spread its wings and swooped down. Its wings were dozens of feet long, and it tore a figure apart on the spot. "Protect the young master," an expert shouted with a grim expression on his face. No one had expected that they would really encounter such powerful savage beasts, and so many of them at that. Swish, at this moment, among the dozen figures, a black-clothed youth was being protected. His clothes were valiant and he was extraordinary. He was none other than the young master of the Black Fiend sect. The young master's surname was Yen, and his name was Yo Hikami. He came out to hunt last night and wanted to kill a few demonic beasts. At first, Elder Yu accompanied him, but halfway, Elder Yu received a message that someone was coming. Elder Yu hurriedly left and ordered the remaining powerhouses to bring the young master back. But how could Yo Hikami be willing to give up such a rare opportunity? It was exactly what he had been looking for. Once Elder Yu left, the remaining Black Fiend school disciples were unable to suppress him and could only listen to him. As a result, they had come here. Along the way, they had indeed killed some savage beasts. However, Yo Hikami had not enjoyed himself to the fullest. He still wanted to go deeper. That was why he was in such a situation. Yo Hikami could no longer feel happy after encountering so many savage beasts and the few powerful leading savage beasts. His expression turned serious. Although the Black Fiend sect's disciples were protecting him with all their might, they also nocked their arrows and waited solemnly. These disciples of the Black Fiend sect were all elites that were handpicked from the sect. Their strength was nothing to scoff at. But even so, they could not help but shudder in the face of these ferocious beasts. Dozens of savage beasts roared. In an instant, the flying beasts and the land beasts erupted. They charged over one after another, causing the entire mountain forest to seethe as they continuously attacked the Black Fiend sect's disciples. In the mountain forest, the powerful ferocious beasts with sharp claws and iron beaks flapped their wings, covering the entire mountain forest. In an instant, another few Black Fiend sect's elites were torn into pieces. Their flesh and blood were badly mutilated. Young master, retreat quickly. Bring a few people to protect the young master and retreat quickly. An expert from the Black Fiend sect shouted. However, he was cursing in his heart. If the young master did not seek death, they would not have encountered so many savage beasts. If the young master really died here, even if they escaped, they would not be able to escape from the barbaric demon forest. The Black Fiend sect would not let them go. Therefore, they could only fight to the death and protect the young master as he retreated. Rumble, awoo, a deep explosion and a shocking beast roar spread across the area. Su Yi's figure appeared in a valley. The valley was very far away, but the terrain was very high. He could see the front from afar. It's the Black Fiend sect's people. The violent commotion attracted Su Yi's attention. When he saw the Black Fiend sect's disciples from afar, his expression immediately changed. Could it be that the Black Fiend sect's people had chased him all the way here? No, that's that brat. Suddenly, Su Yi saw a young man who was being protected by a few panic-stricken figures in the mountain forest ahead. How could Su Yi forget that young man? He was the Black Fiend sect's young master. His strength was at the profound origin realm. He might be stronger than Ji Chao, but not by much. Sensing the situation, Su Yi judged that these Black Fiend sect's people were not looking for him. For some unknown reason, they had encountered this group of powerful savage beasts. At this moment, the Black Fiend sect's young master was fleeing in panic. Although the Black Fiend sect's experts were present, looking at the situation in the distance, it seemed that the Black Fiend sect's experts were also powerless to protect themselves. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. However, I'm not a gentleman. 10 years is too long for revenge. I'll act according to the circumstances. Suddenly, Su Yi's deep and bright eyes emitted a cold light as he stared into the distance. Immediately, Su Yi's figure flashed and immediately disappeared from where he stood. Young master, leave quickly. Awoo! The Black Fiend sect's people fled in panic. Beast roars were like thunder as more than 10 savage beasts viciously chased after them. Several Black Fiend sect's elite disciples paled as they lost their heads out of fear. They escorted young Master Yo Hikami back. They were afraid of those savage beasts, but they were also very clear that if something happened to the young master in front of them, they wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, they could only risk their lives to escort him. If they succeeded, they would at least have done a great service. However, there were only a few of them, while more than 10 savage beasts chased after them. Their strength and cultivation were not below theirs. They were simply unable to contend against them and could only hastily retreat. However, the speed of these savage beasts was not inferior to theirs. In fact, they were even faster. Especially when there were ferocious birds, it didn't take long for them to block their retreat. We're in trouble. The Black Fiend sect's disciples paled as they were surrounded by more than 10 savage beasts. They could only form a circle to protect Yo Hikami in the middle. In such a situation, the dozen savage beasts were all powerful. Yo Hikami no longer had the mood to hunt and began to truly panic and fear. These savage beasts were simply not comparable to the ones that were locked up in the Black Fiend sect for him to practice his skills. Awoo! The savage beasts were ferocious as they directly pounced and roared. These savage beasts either had shining scales or sharp fangs. Their imposing manner was astonishing. Their claws could crush steel and their fangs could tear everything apart. Isong O'Hare, go all out! These Black Fiend sect's disciples were also the elites of the Black Fiend sect. At this moment, they all had a fierce aura as they brandished their weapons. Rays of light flashed as Yuan Qi surged. Immediately, they engaged in a life-and-death battle with the savage beasts. Chapter 76. Roar! A 3-meter-long azure-light scarlet leopard appeared. Its fierce eyes shone with an ominous glint. The aura of the profound demon realm fluctuated. Its speed was incomparably fast. It leaped like a cheetah hunting for its prey, rushing towards Yohikami. Yen Xiangyang, on the other hand, was not completely inexperienced. His talent was outstanding, and he was tempered by the resources of the Black Fiend sect. He was definitely not a flower in a greenhouse. Although he was a little panicked and fearful, he calmed down in the face of true danger. Whoosh! The bow and arrow that he had already prepared was suddenly released. The arrow turned into a bolt of lightning, aiming straight for the vital point of the azure light leopard. Although this leopard was still attacking, it was unbelievably agile. Its body, which was pouncing out at high speed, actually flipped to the side in an instant. Its body did a 180-degree turn and swiftly tapped on a huge rock beside it. Everything was done in one breath with a ferocious aura. It opened its front claws, which gleamed with a cold light, and pounced on Yen Xiangyang again. Yohikami didn't expect the azure light leopard to be so fast and agile. He panicked for a moment, but at the same time, he knocked an arrow on his bow. His yuan qi surged, and the arrow was released. Whoosh! The arrow was like lightning, accompanied by the sharp sound of the wind breaking, and directly shot towards the azure light leopard. The azure light leopard's fierce eyes changed color. It seemed to have felt the power of the arrow, and didn't dare to take it head-on. Roar! The azure light leopard's body left the ground, but it spun half a circle in the air, once again dodging the arrow. At the same time, its 4 paws landed on the ground. It slightly paced, and its fierce eyes stared at Yohikami. It seemed that the azure light leopard was somewhat depressed after failing to catch its prey twice. Yohikami's 2 arrows didn't hit the target. He pulled out the quiver behind his back, and quickly knocked an arrow on the bow. He looked at the azure light leopard with vigilance, and his expression was extremely serious. The azure light leopard's aura fluctuated, and its body glowed. Its sharp claws crushed the rock, and it was about to attack Yohikami again. Suddenly, the azure light leopard seemed to have felt something. It immediately turned around, and its fierce eyes looked to the side. Following the leopard's gaze, a thin figure quietly appeared from the forest. This figure was a 14 or 15-year-old youth. His long black hair draped over his shoulders, but it couldn't cover his handsome facial features. Especially his pair of deep and bright eyes, which were like the brightest stars in the night sky, shining with brilliance. The person who came was dressed in ragged clothes, but it could not hide his unique temperament. He had a slight arrogance and a hint of evilness. Seeing the leopard's sudden reaction, Yohikami immediately followed its gaze. But when he saw the thin figure, Yohikami's face filled with shock. "Kid, how did you escape?" he cried out in alarm. The person who had just arrived was none other than Su-yi. After pondering for a moment, Su-yi made a decision in his heart. The people of the Black Kill sect were definitely in big trouble. Although there were still some experts from the Black Kill sect present, it was obvious that they couldn't even take care of themselves. They simply couldn't get away from the situation. At this very moment, it was undoubtedly the best opportunity for revenge. Although this was still dangerous, Sui felt that if he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be a gentleman. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is too late. Seize every moment. What a coincidence, we meet again. Sui stared at Yohikami. Although he had reached the Yuan profound realm, he wasn't that strong. He was stronger than Ji Chao from the Sacred Mountain, but not by much. Back then, when he was only at the first level of the Essence Soul stage, he was already able to contend against Ji Chao. Now that he was at the 3rd level of the Essence Soul stage, and had also cultivated the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps, Su-yi had the confidence to face Yohikami. "Kid, you want to deal with me?" Sensing Su-yi's gaze, Yohikami wasn't stupid. He could tell that Su-yi didn't hide his intentions. That kid seemed to want to deal with him. Some debts should be paid back. It seems that no one can protect you now. Su-yi sneered. He had already sized up the situation around him. At this moment, the elite disciples of the Black Kill sect were besieged by more than a dozen savage beasts. Each of them couldn't even protect themselves. It was a tragic sight. How could they have the strength to protect Yohikami? The experts of the Black Fiend sect in the distance were also trapped by even more powerful savage beasts, which were not too far away. Otherwise, Su-yi wouldn't have chosen to show himself. TSK, kid, with just you? You're courting death. Yohikami sneered. He was afraid of the leopard, but he didn't put this kid in his eyes. He was already unhappy that he hadn't killed him last time. He hadn't expected him to escape. We'll only know who lives and who dies after we try. But I'm guessing that the one to die today will definitely be you. Su-yi sneered. A cold light flashed through his tenacious eyes. Hiss! Coo! Following Su-yi's words, a strong wind whistled, shaking the surroundings. Sand and stones flew into the air. A huge serpent several meters long appeared beside Su-yi. It opened its bloody mouth and flicked its scarlet tongue. It was very frightening. Up above, a vicious bird with a wingspan of several meters cut through the branches of a towering tree with a flap of its wings. It formed a torrential wind, and its claws were like hooks. This vicious bird and serpent both emitted a fierce aura. The killing intent in their eyes wasn't restrained at all as they stared at Su-yi. Or head gel hair for savage beasts, humans were food. Especially for cultivators, their bodies contained energy. After devouring them, they would obtain a lot of benefit. However, at this moment, the serpent and vicious bird that were staring at Su-yi with killing intent in their eyes seemed to have sensed something that made them instinctively uneasy. Kid, looks like I don't even need to do anything. You overestimate yourself. Yohikami sneered. This kid dared to deal with him? He didn't even need to do anything. Those two demonic beasts were almost at the demon spirit realm. He wondered how this kid would die. While sneering, Yohikami's heart became heavier. They didn't care about Su-yi at all, they didn't care about him at all. But now, his situation was getting more and more serious. This kid was just an interlude. But now, his crisis was getting worse. This was the biggest problem. Su-yi looked at the vicious bird circling above and the serpent beside him. Their aura wasn't weak. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to deal with them. Boom! In an instant, Su-yi operated the Origin Supreme Art. Suddenly, as if they had sensed something, the ferocious bird and giant snake that were originally staring at Su-yi were instantly shocked. Fear gushed out from their eyes, and their bodies trembled as they slowly retreated, not daring to move forward. Roar! The leopard that was staring at Yen Shangyang let out a low growl from its throat. It looked at Su-yi with wariness in its eyes and a complicated expression on its face. It slowly retreated, as if it was afraid of something. Chapter 77. Why did these savage beasts suddenly have such a reaction? It seemed like they were still afraid of that brat. But at this moment, Su-yi's figure was like lightning as he directly pounced on Yohikami. Su-yi knew that the Origin Supreme technique could affect these savage beasts. This was also the reason why he chose to appear. The Black Fiend sex experts were all entangled, and his Origin Supreme technique could affect the savage beasts. Therefore, Su-yi decided to take advantage of this opportunity to attack. Brat, you're courting death. In his shock, Yen Shangyang was no coward. He quickly regained his senses and pointed the bow in his hand at Su-yi, releasing the arrow with full force. Su-yi had already known the methods of the Black Fiend sect's young master. Bow and arrow were a long-range weapon. Only by getting closer would he have a greater chance. Qi-la, the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps, was both real and fake and real. It was unpredictable, and its speed was extremely fast. Su-yi was already prepared. The experience he had honed over the years was perfectly combined with the Fuyao's 100 transformation step. It was simply like adding wings to a tiger. His figure dodged the arrow at an incredible angle. Xiao xiao xiao, Yan Shangyang's face changed color. With a flip of his hand, he threw out 3 arrows from his quiver. His figure retreated rapidly, all in one smooth motion. Triple sky-piercing arrow. At the same time, Yohikami drew his bow and shot 3 arrows at Su-yi, who was still retreating. Woo woo woo, the 3 arrows were shot out in a triangular formation. 3 sharp sounds of wind breaking resounded. The light was like lightning, blocking Su-yi's advancing figure. At this moment, Su-yi, who was retreating, was secretly paying attention. He did not expect Yohikami to be so strong. His archery was strange and powerful. Sensing the aura of the 3 arrows, Su-yi knew that it was impossible to avoid them. He did not dare to take them head-on either. In an instant, Su-yi's white wind attribute Yuan Qi swept out from the soles of his feet, forming a whirlpool under his feet. His figure was like a ghost, like a catkin in the wind, drifting through the gaps between the 3 arrows. Look at the original version of TF on section UR_. Qi-la, however, the fierce wind from the 3 arrows had shaved off quite a bit of the black hair on Su-yi's shoulders. The fierce wind scraped past his neck like a sharp blade, causing his hair to stand on end and his skin to tighten as pain spread through his body. But at this moment, Su-yi took the opportunity to appear in front of Yohikami. Yohikami's expression changed. He didn't think that the brat would be able to dodge his ultimate move. Even shooting 3 arrows at the same time seemed to have taken a lot of effort, so he didn't have the time to knock another arrow. "Brat, do you think I only rely on arrows?" Yohikami sneered. At this moment, it was obvious that the brat had escaped from the mine to kill him. Without enough time to draw the bow, Yohikami shook his arm. In an instant, a blazing fire attribute Yuan Qi gushed out from his body. A fingerprint condensed and pointed directly at Su-yi. Qi-la, the fingerprint was dazzling like a red snake. The angle was tricky and sinister as it swept towards Su-yi's head. Su-yi had already made his decision to take action. He also took in the situation around him and didn't underestimate the young master of the Black Fiend sect. Seeing the vicious fingerprint of the young master of the Black Fiend sect, Su-yi's heart sank and the corner of his mouth twitched. The young master of the Black Fiend sect did have some tricks up his sleeve. If it wasn't for the mysterious person's guidance in the deep valley, Su-yi felt that he would be in danger right now. It was a long story, but everything happened very quickly. When the red fingerprint appeared in front of Su-yi, Su-yi waved his hand and Yuan Qi surged. A tyrannical and invisible energy wave shattered the fingerprint into nothingness like a shock wave. After shattering the fingerprint, Su-yi was also prepared. His figure took the opportunity to close in. Suddenly, a black Yuan Qi rumbled from Su-yi's body. The Yuan Qi shuttled through a specific meridian and an earth attribute Yuan Qi suddenly gathered and rose, finally gathering at his right foot. At this moment, Su-yi no longer held back the aura of the 3rd layer of the essence soul realm. Within his eyes, a dazzling light flashed like lightning. His ragged clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. His aura was indescribable, as if it carried the fury of thunder. 8 Desolate's fury, suppressing mountains and rivers with 1 foot. His shout was like thunder. Following Su-yi's shout, his right foot suddenly stepped out. Beneath his foot, a Yuan Qi vortex swept out like a storm. Boom! The earth trembled and the air rumbled. From where Su-yi's foot landed, circles of black earth attribute Yuan Qi energy swept out like wave. Crack crack, the ground cracked. Cracks as thick as an arm spread out like a spider web. The surrounding rocks and broken trees were all shattered into fine powder in an instant. For some unknown reason, the nearby savage beast's eyes were trembling as they constantly roared. At this moment, a painful groan sounded from Yohikami's mouth. As his figure staggered backwards, the ground around his feet continuously cracked. A mouthful of blood was involuntarily spat out from his mouth. At this moment, the expression on Yo Hikami's face truly changed as shock surged up. He was injured. He had suffered a heavy blow. His opponent was clearly only at the third layer of the Essence Soul realm. He was a genuine first layer of the Yuan Profound realm. Even if he was at the peak of the ninth layer of the Essence Soul realm, there was still a huge gap between him and the first layer of the Yuan Profound realm. However, that brat was only at the third layer of the Essence Soul realm. The strength that he had just displayed was actually so terrifying. If he had not been prepared, and had cultivated some conjoined body techniques since he was young, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Su Yi's foot landed. His face was pale. The consumption of 8 Desolation Fury was too great. If he had not broken through to the third layer of the Essence Soul realm, Su Yi would not have dared to casually use it. He's stronger than I imagined. Seeing that the former was only injured and had not been knocked down by his attack, Su Yi's eyes immediately darkened. This Black Fiend Sect's young master was much stronger than Ji Yunshu of the Sacred Mountain. It had exceeded his expectations. Then, Su Yi saw that there was a layer of faint crimson light on the former's body. It was like a layer of mist that covered his exposed skin, tightly wrapping around his skin. Yuan Qi Barrier. Su Yi's eyes narrowed. At the Essence Soul realm, one would be able to release Yuan Qi and form a Yuan Qi barrier to protect one's body. The scarlet light covering the Black Fiend Sect's young master's exposed skin should be a Yuan Qi barrier. Brat, I have to say that you're already very strong. It's a pity that the Yuan Profound realm and the Essence Soul realm are worlds apart. Now, prepare to die. After suffering a heavy blow, dark red blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Yo Hikami stared eerily at Su Yi. The Yuan Qi within his body surged along with his killing intent, forming a layer of fiery light on the surface of his body. Swish! Chapter 78. In the blink of an eye, Yo Hikami appeared in front of Su Yi in a precarious situation. However, Yo Hikami also knew that the first person he needed to deal with was this brat. His killing intent intensified as he sent a palm strike straight for Su Yi's head. Although Yo Hikami was heavily injured, his palm strike was still as powerful as ever. The air in front of the palm strike buzzed as a resplendent light exploded. Facing Yo Hikami's fierce attack, Su Yi's expression turned grave. He had just used 8 Desolation Fury and did not have much strength left to contend against it. Without any delay, Su Yi instinctively retreated as profound energy surged beneath his feet. You're no match for me. You can't escape. Seeing Su Yi retreat, Yo Hikami's face was filled with malevolence. He was already unhappy with this brat the last time. He was at the first layer of the Yuan Profound realm and had a king-tier talent. Now, he was actually beaten into such a sorry state by a brat at the third layer of the Yuan Spirit realm. The resentment in his heart could be imagined. Yo Hikami's palm strike changed as he clenched it into a fist. His fist surged with energy as it vibrated the air and materialized energy rays appeared. This was the manifestation of his Yuan Qi. Only those who had reached the Yuan Profound realm could use it. It was also the symbol of an Yuan Profound realm cultivator. Su Yi's expression turned grave as he sensed the power of Yo Hikami's punch. He had already exhausted too much of his energy. If this continued, it would be disadvantageous for him. He inwardly clenched his teeth as the remaining Yuan Qi in his body surged. Brat, you're too slow. You're courting death. With a cold shout, Yo Hikami found an opportunity. How could a brat at the third layer of the Yuan Spirit realm be his opponent? Although his fist was dodged, he simultaneously raised his arm and smashed it fiercely onto Su Yi's shoulder. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as a terrifying force poured down onto Su Yi's shoulder. At the same time, Su Yi's face turned malevolent as his veins popped out. Overlord Fist. At the same time, Su Yi let out a loud shout as his right fist appeared in front of Yohikami's head. A terrifying Yuan Qi power erupted like a volcano as it suddenly exploded in front of Su Yi's eye. Bang! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Su Yi's fist, which was glowing brightly, seemed to have swelled up. The sound of wind and thunder could be heard, like the rumbling of thunder. It was as if an overlord had awakened, and a huge pressure of an emperor was about to descend. Boom! Both of their fists met eyes bodies of an of's bodies of an eye. Poochie! Su Yi spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying, crashing into the ground 3 feet away. Yohikami's body did not retreat, but his face was already badly mutilated. His eyeballs were protruding as blood flowed from his eyes. His expression was still filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness as his body fell backwards. The Black Fiend sect's disciples who were bitterly holding on had been watching the fight from the corner of their eyes. Unfortunately, they could not even protect themselves and were unable to intervene. The Black Fiend sect's 2 origin spirit realm practitioners had formed their Yuan Qi under their feet as they roared. However, they were also entangled by powerful savage beasts and were similarly unable to protect themselves. Young Sect Master. Seeing Yohikami's body fall, the Black Fiend sect's disciples fell into despair. They had never imagined that a brat would suddenly appear and directly kill their young sect master. In the battle between Su Yi and Yohikami, the giant snake, ferocious bird, and the cyan light leopard all retreated. Seeing Su Yi being sent flying, they paced back and forth while growling. However, they did not dare to approach. Su Yi crawled up with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His shoulder was broken, revealing traces of blood. Looking at the figure that had fallen several zhang away, he crawled up in one breath and immediately went to the former's side. Brat, you're courting death. The Black Fiend sect's disciples who could not even take care of themselves angrily shouted as they watched the brat crawl up and go to their young sect master's side. However, they were similarly powerless. Without any delay, the Black Fiend sect's young sect master was already deader than dead. Su Yi rummaged through his clothes and fished out a space pouch. Looking at the bough that had fallen not far away, his gaze was somewhat reluctant. However, he immediately staggered and leapt into the forest, disappearing from sight. The energy behind him collided with a muffled sound like thunder. Su Yi's body staggered as he hurriedly left, not daring to stay any longer. Relying on his experience, Su Yi searched for a place to hide. Of course, he did not dare to search nearby. The farther, the better. Su Yi did not want to let go of the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. If he did not take revenge, he would not be a gentleman. Otherwise, the next time they met, it would undoubtedly cause more trouble for him. Furthermore, Su Yi also had his eyes on the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. As the young sect master of the Black Fiend sect, he should have a lot of good things on him. What he needed at this moment was precisely cultivation resources. Since he had encountered him, it was fate. Seeing the bow that the former used, it should be quite valuable. Su Yi resisted the urge to take it. He was afraid of wasting time, so he stopped while he was ahead. He was also afraid that the bow and arrow would be too eye-catching, and he would not be able to use it. If he took action in the future, it might attract unwanted attention. Based on his experience in the barbarian demon forest, Su Yi didn't forget to hide his tracks. He didn't know how far he had run before he came across a hidden cliff. The surroundings were verdant, and old trees were entwined like dragons. A natural crevice was densely covered with tree vines. It was precisely the hiding place that Su Yi was looking for. In the messy battlefield, the corpses of savage beasts were strewn everywhere. It was a complete mess. The Black Fiend sect's elder by an elder, you looked at the corpse of Yohikami lying on the ground. His face was beyond recognition. His flesh and blood were badly mangled. His pale face was gloomy to the extreme. "Little bastard, you can't escape. Find him for me." Elder Bai was furious. Compared to the accident in the mine, he was more unwilling to see something happen to the young sect master. His gloomy voice resounded, and the surrounding air was filled with a chill. Swoosh, swoosh, although the remaining Black Fiend sect's elite disciples were in a sorry state with injuries, no one dared to delay. With a dignified expression, they rushed out and disappeared into the deep forest. 3 days later. It was night. The surroundings were silent. C.L. New, Chapter 7, section above. In the vast sky above the mountain range, stars began to twinkle in the vast sky. Occasionally, a few shrubs would appear beside the crevice. In the depths of the crevice, a faint light flashed, but it was very hidden. In the depths of the crevice, there was no trace of it. In the mysterious space, the energy of heaven and earth was rich. Su-yi sat cross-legged with his hands forming seals. He was circulating the Origin Supreme art to heal his injuries. After 3 days, Su-yi's pale face regained some color, and the aura on his body was no longer weak. Huff, at a certain moment, a mouthful of turbid air was exhaled. The light around his body converged. Su-yi's closed eyes opened. The light was dazzling, but it soon turned into a deep and tenacious look. "He's gotten a bit stronger." Chapter 79. Every time I reach my limit, I'll become stronger. Soon, Su-yi understood. The process of cultivation was a process of tempering and improvement. Every upgrade was a metamorphosis. The most common comparison was like working out, training again and again, tearing muscles and challenging the limit again and again. But in exchange, he would surpass himself again and again. The process of cultivation was the same. After reaching one's limit again and again, he would become stronger than before. This was a gradual transformation, a gradual transcendence. Looking at his shoulder, which had been smashed by the Black Fiend sect's young master's fist, his skin had been broken and blood had seeped out. But now it had completely recovered. His skin was faintly flickering with a luster like warm jade. Su-yi's lips curved into a smile. He knew that this was due to the Origin Supreme art. 3 years of body refining had allowed his body to surpass his peers. From his fight with Ji Chao, Su-yi knew how powerful his body was. In the end, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and face the Black Fiend sect's young master head-on. That was close. Thinking of the Black Fiend sect's young master, Su-yi's smile faded. This time, it was indeed a little risky. The consequences were almost unthinkable. Recalling the situation of their fight, Su-yi felt that he was a little rash. Coupled with a mistake in judgment, he did not kill the Black Fiend sect's young master in one blow as he had expected. The consequences were unthinkable, and he had fallen into a desperate situation. In the end, being able to kill the Black Fiend sect's young master and escape, it had to be said that there was a little bit of luck involved. There is a qualitative difference between the profound origin stage and the essence soul stage. Su-yi muttered softly. When he fought with Ji Chao from the sacred mountain, Ji Chao was only at the peak of the 9th layer essence soul stage, half a step away from the true profound origin stage. But the Black Fiend sect's young master was a true profound origin stage cultivator. He could condense a profound chi shield, expose his yuan chi, and condense yuan chi into solid yuan chi energy. These were all things that could only be done at the profound origin stage. Squinting his eyes, Su-yi knew that he had made a mistake in his judgment this time. Next time, he absolutely could not do this again, or the consequences would be unimaginable. After tidying himself up, Su-yi put away the mysterious space and appeared in the crevice. This time, Su-yi was not without gains. Not only did he kill the Black Fiend sect's young master, he also obtained a spatial bag. Inside the crevice, Su-yi stretched out his hand and a spatial bag appeared in his hand. It was the size of a palm and looked like a brocade bag. It was suffused with a luster. This was the interspatial bag that he had obtained from the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. Su-yi had taken the risk to deal with the former, not only because he wanted to settle the debt from back then, but also because he wanted to use his identity as the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. Su-yi guessed that the Black Fiend sect's young sect master definitely had a spatial bag on him. There might be a lot of cultivation resources inside. If he wanted to become an expert, what he lacked the most right now was cultivation resources. Su-yi curled his lips again when he looked at the interspatial bag in his hand. The interspatial bag itself was a treasure, so it was worth quite a lot. Su-yi was looking forward to the items inside the interspatial bag even more at this moment. There's a restriction on it. How do I open it? Despite that, Su-yi was faced with a problem. There was a restriction on the interspatial bag, so it could not be opened. Su-yi had never owned an interspatial bag, but he had heard of them. Interspatial bags were valuable items. Apart from being portable, every interspatial bag needed to be dripped with blood to recognize its owner. Finally, a unique restriction would be set on the bag. As such, the interspatial bag could only be opened by itself. If someone forcefully opened the bag, everything inside would be destroyed. Nonetheless, the restriction was not completely indestructible. It could be destroyed in the face of absolute power. Alternatively, powerful blacksmiths would have some unique techniques that could help in opening the restriction on an interspatial bag. Su-yi thought about the way to open the interspatial bag's restriction in his mind. Back when Su-yi was at the mysterious man's place at the bottom of the 30,000 meters tall cliff, he did not only obtain the heaven-controlling art but also plenty of cultivation knowledge. It was like an inheritance. I've got it. Following that, Su-yi smiled because he found a way. If his strength was on par with that of the person who set the restriction on the interspatial bag, it was very likely that he could break the restriction. Strictly speaking, there were two conditions to break a restriction that was set up by someone else. Firstly, one's strength must not be inferior to the person who set up the restriction. Secondly, which was also the most important condition, one's soul power must be greater than the person's. Su-yi was secretly delighted. He did not have the cultivation base of the Black Evil sect's young sect master, but he was a proper soul-controlling master. His soul power was his forte, so he could give it a try. After familiarizing himself with the method to break the restriction, Su-yi sank into his thoughts and sat with his legs crossed again. He planned to try to open the interspatial bag's restriction. Swoosh, a handprint was made, and there was a fluctuation of primordial chi that shone brightly. Su-yi began to try to break the interspatial bag's restriction. He controlled a primordial chi fluctuation on his palm, and his illusory soul power spread quietly. Along with the primordial chi, it wrapped around the interspatial bag in his palm. Boom! All of a sudden, a scene that was completely out of Su-yi's expectations appeared. The instant the primordial chi on his palm touched the interspatial bag, the mysterious space in his mind went berserk again. Whoosh! A light was instantly released from Su-yi's mind. A familiar and mysterious power gushed out like a bolt of lightning and covered the interspatial bag. Su-yi could clearly sense that the mysterious light in his mind was devouring some kind of energy inside the interspatial bag at the moment. At that instant, the interspatial bag emitted a dazzling light. Su-yi was enveloped in the light, and nothing could stop it. He could only sense that there was a surging energy fluctuation between the mysterious light and the interspatial bag at the moment. Not long after, in less than 3 minutes, the interspatial bag's light began to dim. The mysterious light in Su-yi's mind stopped reacting. It calmed down again as if nothing had happened. Crack, crack, A faint sound was heard coming from the interspatial bag on his palm. The restriction had unknowingly shattered and disappeared. Sui was dumbfounded and did not come back to his senses. Could the mysterious light have the effect of breaking the interspatial bag's restriction? But I clearly sensed that the mysterious light seemed to be devouring some kind of energy inside the interspatial bag. After coming back to his senses, Sui immediately checked the interspatial bag. He turned it upside down, and many items inside poured out. Whoosh! Stones rolled out from the interspatial bag and turned into powder as soon as they hit the ground. Chapter 80. In the end, the stones that fell out of the space bag turned into powder, which was several meters in size. Fortunately, there was another world in the crack, and the area was not small. Otherwise, it would have been enough to drown everything. They're not stones, they're vitality stones. Sui examined the powder in astonishment. It was exactly the same as the primordial testing stone in Barbarian City, and the powder was almost the same. How could it be stone powder? It was clearly primordial stones. No one would put stones in their interspatial bag for no reason. Sui finally understood why the mysterious light ball reacted. It turned out that there were vitality stones in the space bag, which caused the mysterious light ball to react. The mysterious ball of light had actually absorbed so many primordial stones even though it was separated by the space bag. This also shocked Sui. He didn't know that the mysterious orb had such a perverse effect. Faintly, Sui's heart ached. Judging from the amount of vitality stone powder, there was definitely a huge amount of vitality stones in the space bag. It was a huge fortune. But now, the vitality stones had all turned into powder and were absorbed by the mysterious light ball. Are there any other good things? Sui turned the space bag upside down and searched carefully, not wanting to miss anything. After that, Sui really did find something else in the primordial stone powder. There were 3 jade bottles containing pills, 2 yellowed scrolls, and a large pile of fresh herbs. They were still connected to the roots, which seemed to have been picked not long ago. There were also 2 quivers filled with arrows. Sui recognized them at a glance. They were exactly the same as the quivers on the back of the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. They were made by him. There was also a longsword. Judging from the texture of the material, it should be worth a lot. Red jade grass, spirit-amplifying tea, jade bamboo, 7-leaved nightshade. Sui checked the pile of herbs. They were not herbs, but spiritual herbs. One could imagine the value of spiritual herbs used to refine pills. Vitality recovery pill, soul stabilizing pill, earth profound pill. Subsequently, Sui inspected the 3 bottles of elixirs. They were the essence recovery elixir for healing injuries, the earth profound elixir for consolidating one's cultivation at the profound origin realm, and the soul stabilizing elixir for consolidating one's cultivation at the soul essence realm. There were 10 vitality recovery pills and earth profound pills, but only 3 soul stabilizing pills. I'm rich, Sui was pleasantly surprised. As he had expected, the young master of the Black Fiend sect had quite a lot of cultivation resources on him. That pile of herbs was already shockingly valuable. The Vitality Recovery Pill and the Earth Profound Pill were both high-grade moon-grade pills. Back in the Su family, the Origin Spirit Pill that Grandpa gave him was only a low-tier moon-grade pill. Even the Soul Stabilizing Pill was a mid-tier moon-tier pill, which was 1 tier higher than the Origin Spirit Pill. B/W Mr. U. Even though it was only 1 grade higher, the difference in price was like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference was at least 10 times. 2 sets of martial arts techniques. After Sui inspected the 2 scrolls, he realized that they were 2 sets of martial arts technique. There were words on the scrolls that looked like seal script. One of them was called 7 Wound Fists and the other was called Scarlet Flame Palm. They were both martial grade martial arts technique. According to Su Yi's knowledge, the entire Su family was far from having any martial-grade martial arts technique. Back in the Sacred Mountain, Ji Chao had used king-grade martial arts technique. Martial-grade martial arts techniques were already extraordinary. Even though they were not king-grade martial arts techniques, they were not emperor-grade martial arts techniques like the Fuyao 100 transformation step. However, Su Yi knew very well that if people knew that he had 2 martial-grade martial arts techniques, he would be hunted down by countless people in the barbarian demon forest. I've struck it rich. Looking at what he had, Su Yi's joy was indescribable. It was the first time he had seen so many good things in his life. The space bag, the 2 martial-grade martial arts techniques, and the 3 bottles of elixir pills were enough to trade for the entire barbarian city. Moreover, the primordial stone powder that had been poured out of the space bag proved that there was a huge pile of primordial stones inside. Even the lowest grade of primordial stones was priceless. Even though the energy had been absorbed by the mysterious ball of light, it was still beneficial to him in the mysterious space. At that moment, Su Yi did not know that the space bag he had found from the Black Fiend Sect's young sect master did not belong to him. It was the Black Fiend Sect's transportation space bag. The Black Fiend Sect had many mines, shops, and other businesses. Naturally, they relied on the space bag and powerhouses for transportation. However, this time, Elder Bai had brought Yo Hikami to the mine. Although he had an ulterior motive, he also wanted to bring back a batch of primordial stones that had been mined from the mine. Speaking of which, this large amount of primeval stones should have been given to Elder Bai himself. However, Elder Bai had purposely given the primordial stones to Yo Hikami to prevent people from targeting the Black Fiend Sect. Moreover, Elder Bai had purposely wanted to curry favor with the young sect master and give him the impression that he was worthy of great responsibility. However, Elder Bai did not expect that Yo Hikami would be killed by Su Yi and the space bag would be taken away by Su Yi. At that moment, Su Yi still thought that he had only taken the Black Fiend Sect's young sect master's space bag. He did not know that he had actually taken the last batch of primordial stones that had been mined from the Black Fiend Sect's mine. It was also the largest batch of primordial stones. The skinny old man also did not know that he had risked his life, deliberately entered the mine, and tricked Su Yi in the end, all for the sake of that batch of primordial stones. However, the last batch of primordial stones had fallen into Su Yi's hands. If he knew about this, his expression would definitely be very interesting. At that moment, Su Yi did not know how many primordial stones he had obtained. In any case, what appeared in front of Su Yi was a pile of primordial stone powder. I wonder if the mysterious space has expanded again. Su Yi did not know how many primordial stones there were, but he knew very well that after absorbing the energy within the primordial stones, the mysterious space would expand again. It was possible that the energy within the space would become even denser. Su Yi formed a hand seal and summoned the mysterious space again. However, to Su Yi's surprise, after entering the mysterious space again, for some reason, the space did not continue to expand this time. The mysterious space was still about 300 meters wide, and its area of half a kilometer did not expand. It's so dense. Despite that, Su Yi was also shocked. The energy in the space was much denser than before he had opened the interspatial bag. It was so dense that it was simply frightening. At that moment, the energy of heaven and earth in the space was so dense that it was oppressive. The surroundings were hazy and emitted a faint light. The space was about 300 meters wide, and the ground that looked like soil was currently filled with mist. Strictly speaking, the mist that was floating in the air seemed to be materialized energy. Chapter 81. There must be a lot of primal stones in the interspatial bag. Su Yi's eyes were filled with joy. He sensed the increased energy in the mysterious space, so it was not difficult for him to confirm that there were a lot of primal stones in the interspatial bag. Holding back the joy in his heart, Sue placed the 3 bottles of pills that he had just obtained in the space. The mysterious space had a great function. By placing pills inside, it could directly improve their quality and medicinal efficacy. Sue did not want to miss out on the benefits of the mysterious space. The mysterious space had absorbed so many primal stones that should have belonged to him, so it naturally needed to give him some benefits. If he placed the pills in the space for a period of time, their quality and medicinal efficacy could not be compared to now. If the spiritual herbs can improve the quality of pills, then, all of a sudden, Sue looked at the soil in the mysterious space. It suddenly occurred to him that the mysterious space could improve the quality and medicinal efficacy of pills. If he directly planted the spiritual herbs in the space, would their quality and rank be improved? With that thought in mind, Sue instantly got to work. Using the sword he obtained from the interspatial bag as a hoe, Sue spent a total of 4 hours digging out an area of several meters in the soil of the interspatial bag. He carefully planted the spiritual herbs he obtained. After that, he stood up with satisfaction. His heart was filled with anticipation, but he was also a little nervous. If he succeeded, the mysterious space could improve the medicinal efficacy and quality of spiritual herbs, and he would be rich in the future. Hey, what's that? All of a sudden, Sue noticed something special. In the center of the space, a small pit with a diameter of about 1.5 meters appeared on the ground that was raised like a small hill. The small pit was surrounded by bright and transparent rocks, which looked like the mouth of a well. At the bottom of the pit, a layer of liquid that was as thick as a palm overflowed. It looked like white water but was thicker. It was crystal clear, colorless, and odorless. What's this? A mountain spring? Sue was curious. He leaned down and swept the crystal clear liquid with his hand. He actually felt an appetite. For some reason, Sue scooped up a mouthful of the liquid with one hand and brought it to his mouth. Then he drank it in one gulp out of habit. It tasted cool and refreshing, like a sweet spring. But then, this sweet liquid instantly streaked across Sue's throat and turned into a huge amount of energy that rushed into Sue's body. The shock waves caused Sue's body to feel as if it had been struck by lightning. Rumble! The huge impact was like a bomb exploding in Sue's body, almost tearing Sue's body apart. It also caused Sue to stumble and fall to the ground. Walala, in an instant, from Sue's body to the outside, a surge of energy gushed out. The light was pure white and flawless, finally wrapping around Sue's body. Sue was not prepared for this at all. That mouthful of spring-like liquid immediately turned into a surge of surging energy in his body, gushing out in all directions. This surge of energy seemed to want to explode Sue's body. If it weren't for Sue's strong body, it was likely that his body would have exploded. What a huge amount of energy! This is bad. Sue instantly came back to his senses, and his expression changed greatly. He didn't expect that the spring-like liquid would contain such an abnormal amount of energy. It was too surging, as if it wanted to explode his body. Under the impact of his meridians, muscles, and internal organs, the tearing pain seemed to have reached the extreme, causing Sue to be in indescribable pain. Subconsciously, Sue gritted his teeth and sat down cross-legged, operating the Origin Supreme technique, wanting to consume and refine the surging energy. The surging energy rushed through his body like countless wild horses galloping. As Sue operated the Origin Supreme technique, he immediately began to absorb and refine the surging energy. According to the operation of the Origin Supreme technique, the energy flowed through his meridians, being refined, and then slowly turned into pure yuan qi. Fortunately, the spring-like liquid didn't resist and immediately began to be refined along with Sue's Origin Supreme technique. However, the powerful impact was still there. The energy transformed from the spring-like liquid was not something that Su-Yi could easily bear with his current cultivation. While refining the energy in his body, Su-Yi's body trembled and his face twitched. Dense cold sweat constantly spread out on his forehead. The tearing pain caused by the impact in Su-Yi's body was unbearable for ordinary people. Clenching his teeth and enduring the twitching pain in his body, Su-Yi was miserable. Su-Yi didn't expect the spring-like liquid to be so terrifying, but now he was powerless and could only refine it with all his strength. Otherwise, this surging energy would sooner or later burst his body. Fortunately, the Origin Supreme technique could refine this energy, which relieved a lot of pressure for Su-Yi. As a short period of time passed, the intense pain also slowly subsided. Su-Yi finally relaxed a lot, but his body was still filled with the surging energy. In the Dantian's Yuan Qi vortex, wisps of pure Yuan Qi poured in, all refined by the surging energy. This caused Su-Yi to be both surprised and delighted. Looking at the situation, although he had almost exploded from the impact, he was certain that this mountain spring-like liquid contained surging energy that he could use. At this moment, Su-Yi could feel that the wisps of Yuan Qi were gathering and surging in, and his aura continued to rise. It looked like he was about to break through. Feeling this change, Su-Yi was ecstatic. He tried to control the rhythm and poured the refined Yuan Qi into the Yuan Qi vortex. In the Dantian's Yuan Qi vortex, the Yuan Qi became more and more abundant. Buzz buzz, the Yuan Qi in Su-Yi's Dantian rotated faster and faster, as if forming a storm, letting out a low rumbling sound like wind and thunder. The Yuan Qi continued to pour in, becoming more and more abundant. In the end, Su-Yi's Dantian's Yuan Qi vortex could no longer store it. The Yuan Qi even filled his meridians, as if it was about to explode. Bang! At a certain moment, a muffled sound came from Su-Yi's Dantian. The Dantian's Yuan Qi vortex suddenly stopped, as if it had exploded, and then the vortex spread out in the opposite direction, turning into a vacuum. $J version %, first X release, another breakthrough. Sensing this change, Su-Yi's lips curved into a smile. This was a sign that he was about to break through again. Walala! Suddenly, Su-Yi's face changed again. There was still a lot of surging energy in his body that had not been refined. But at this moment, these unrefined energy, accompanied by the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, suddenly rushed towards him crazily. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.